Aussie Lawn Stars is the first podcast in Australia for the lawn and garden maintenance industry. Hi, I'm Gary Ashton, and my goal is to help businesses survive and thrive with a sharp focus on business systems, skills, and checklists that will ensure you know what will help you stay in business and succeed. With an extensive back catalogue of interviews from our diverse industry, I look for stories, the success tips, and the hard lessons learned. Sometimes we focus on tools and trailer setups and the brands that are the backbone of our support network, but mostly I am driven to find you evidence of what you can do or what you can change to ensure you win. Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Today it is getting a little bit chilly coming into winter and I'm sitting in my dungeon. Dan from Mowersaurus is with me, and Dan, when I saw your surname, I was confused. I was like, hang on, you're the Mowersaurus, but where's this come from? Because your last name doesn't quite make sense.
So my last name is Travisaurus. But when I was a kid, a lot of people would confuse it with Travasaurus, or there's a bunch that was around the dinosaur sort of thing. And I had a bunch of nicknames when I was a kid. But one of the common ones was T-Rex. And it's funny because about everyone in my family, because my last name's quite unique. There's only a few of us in Australia with my last name.
Yeah.
Almost every single one of us had the same nickname, so it stuck. And then when I started the business, we were trying to find up names for it. I think we went through about 40 or 50 names. And the original name of the business was actually Big Sombrero Lawn Care, because I wore a massive sombrero as like a bit of a marketing thing when I initially started to try and get some customers.
Good sun protection.
Yeah, good sun protection. And then, it just didn't really catch on. And then my mate said, why don't you just call it the Mowersaurus? Like, it's kind of fits. Yeah. And, we ran with it since then. And to be honest, when we went into it, the branding, when I started the business, I set it up from the get-go to be a branding business so that the name would be recognisable and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. And so it kind of stuck from there. But yeah, the last name is where it all stems from.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people come into our industry with that really low barrier to entry, and it's like 3 tools and a hatchback. Yep. How many times have I said that? But some of us come in thinking we're hotshots and we're going, all right, we're going to nail this. We're going to have a website. We're going to have branding. We're going to make sure we hit it out of the park. Most people, regardless, will have a technician mindset. Have you read the E-Myth?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so that's a business book, and they talk about business people starting business. They have an entrepreneurial fart. Oh yeah, there's a business idea, but then they enter technician mode. They might switch between technician, manager, and entrepreneur, but typically speaking, most of us just sit in that technician mode. I've identified the perfect way to run this business, and I'm just going to sit in that rat wheel and spin.
Yeah, the hamster wheel, man. Yeah, definitely can relate to that.
That's the one.
Yeah,
but so you've come into it with some smarter ideas, not just cutting grass.
I did, but it's not to say it didn't start from a very bare basic sort of thing. So when I actually started the business, it was the result of another business idea that I had failing before it got off the ground. And that laid solely at the feet of Corona. I'm just for all your listeners, I'm in Melbourne, so the lockdowns were hard and fast.
Yes.
And I actually had a kids' toy company that I was going to start. And I was going to make high-powered water pistols, like from the 90s. If you grew up in the 90s, everyone remembers the Super Soakers that were like you get hit with them and it actually hurt. And you could, I remember modifying them and making them so they could take more pressure and stuff like that, and overfilling the things. And so I wanted to bring a bit of that back. Long story short, that business failed because when I sent some tooling off to get made, the business was forced into lockdown. Then they went into liquidation, and that was
that sucks.
That was the last of my money.
Ouch.
And at the time, I had a horticultural background from a long, long time ago. Working in vineyards and stuff when I was a teenager, because I grew up in a wine region. I grew up in the Yarra Valley. So
nice.
Yeah, and so I worked in vineyards, and then I thought, well, I need something to make cash flow, and then I learned about cash flow principles from a few business, I suppose you call them business magnates or whatever you want to call it. And fortunately, my role prior to starting this business was actually in investment banking. I've got a very diverse background, but it was in investment banking. Is a long and short of it. And I got a lot of exposure to quite wealthy people, and they will explain that cash flow is king, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And I looked into high cash flow businesses, and believe it or not, gardening is ranked up near one of the top, as far as like a percentage of sales, how much of it is cash flow versus you sort of a consistent recurring cash flow versus having to reinvest in new customers. So that's how I got into it. And that was in 2021.
I did an interview, it's got to be last year, I'm thinking, maybe beginning of this year, with a family friend who lives down the Yarra Valley. And he comes from a business background as well. So we purely talked about his business expertise, but he started a gyms franchise, not mowing, but test and tag. And his view was high cash flow as well. So high cash flow business, test and tag, you don't need a massive amount of tools, you don't need a massive amount of training, and you get to charge a fairly decent premium for doing it.
Yeah, especially when you get onto construction sites, because we previously I've got multiple trade certificates. I've got certificate 3 and certificate 4 in horticulture, certificate 3 in sheet metal fabrication, and then I started certificate 3 in electrotechnology, which means I was an electrical apprentice. And that was back when I was in my very early 20s, and I got into the second year, and then that was in 2012. And at the time, the whole industry kind of had a big hit at the fallout of the GFC after it was over, because we had a lot of money coming from the government to boost the sector. Well, that money ran out, and there was no private investment at the time in the sector. And I remember going to interviews, like a trade apprentice interview as a second year apprentice, and going into a hallway filled with 30 people, and I was the only person who was a mature age. So there was not a chance I was getting a role. So
I was in 2 years into cutting grass at that stage.
Yeah, there you go. I suppose from there, I've always been, and I believe this is a really important thing for any business owner. You need grit, and you need the ability to work hard.
Yep.
And it is a lot of hours with no reward. If you want to grow it, and if you want to turn it into a business, if you just want to work for yourself, you can, from starting a business to being flat out, even in Melbourne, you can do that in under 12 months. And you'll be run off your feet. I think I had around 50, 55 clients within 12 months. And that's plenty. There's guys who talk about doing, 45 lawns a week, solo, day in, day out. But if you're servicing your customers properly and taking care of things in the garden and stuff like that, you only need to see somewhere between 5 and 8 customers a day would be a solid maximum for a solo person, depending on the yard side and what work's required.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a massive caveat there, because of if you're in like the inner city in Melbourne or Brisbane or Sydney, then the yard size is tiny. Whereas if you go down the peninsula in Melbourne, or if you're talking Sydney, some of the posh suburbs, Brisbane also has that. You might find there's acreages in amongst the tiny areas, but there's also a lot more gardening to do in some of those properties, so you're not just cutting grass.
Especially in, I've actually noticed, I suppose more since I've had exposure to this industry, one of the big things I've noticed about each state is how different the gardening scene is. Like if you go to Perth, almost everybody uses a cylinder mower. That's a very rare thing to see in Melbourne. There's some people who do it, but it's not real common.
I think I've interviewed one in Melbourne that does cylinder mowing, but that's, like you say, that's one out of a lot of people I've talked to.
Yep. And the the presence of property, like the way a property wants to be presented in WA is generally of a higher standard, I've found. And the same in New South Wales. Queensland tends to be a faster growth as far as like your gardens and your lawns grow a lot faster, but the makeup is mostly grass. I've noticed there's a lot more lawn care up there than actual gardens. It's funny when you sort of travel around.
What I've found it really interesting, just reflecting on that thought, because this is one of the backbones of our industry, is the ratio between basic, I'm going to say cowboy lawn mowing work, and then the high-end work that comprises of mowing and gardening typically. Like a high-end work, you don't just do the mowing. It's very, unless you're in Perth, right?
Or in certain parts like Vaucluse or something like that. Like some of our friends who were on the UC Botany Bay on the daily Instagram reels from them.
Yeah, so my observations would be, if you wind the clock back, like even back to when I started my business, Australia had a large percentage of quarter-acre blocks that were the traditional family home, which means they had a citrus tree in one corner, they had a clothesline in another corner, a path from the house to the clothesline and a path from the house to the road, and then a driveway with a garage, possibly. So your basic quarter-acre block, 1,000 square metres, and people were happy to pay $50, maybe $60 if you're really good, when I started my business. Right? So anywhere in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, you're going to have a lot of properties that are like that. What's happened in Australia since 2010, because that's when I started, is a huge amount of development to cater for immigration. And not just immigration, but a lot of people now, when they're buying a house, so between 2010 and COVID, a lot of people were going, all right, double income, no kids, we will buy a house that's on 400 or 500 square metre block with a tiny little lawn, no garden, maybe.
It's
changed completely.
It has. So in Melbourne, I don't know if this is a national building reg, but I know in Melbourne or in Victoria, the state building regs deem medium density housing, which means residential, your standard residential housing, is down to 150 square metre blocks now. And so if you go into some of the new suburbs in Melbourne, like if you go into, especially around the Werribee area, there is a section around there, and I know this because my father's partner has just bought a property there where her block is 155 square metres, I think, or 160 square metres, and it was considered a large block for that development estate. And so the future gardening in those blocks is zero, to be frank. They've got like, most people have artificial turf out the front. They don't have actual turf, and we can get into a discussion about that too, because a lot of people don't realise how bad artificial turf actually is, one, for the environment, and two, for their well-being, especially if they have pets.
Mate, we're only at 3:30, and I'm happy to go through till 6 or 7 tonight. So
we can wrap it in, man. we can wrap this right in.
We can cover it all.
In Melbourne, so I would say my average customer block size is probably around 550 to 650 square metres. I have some customers who are on acreage. My biggest customer was on acreage. He still is on acreage. But we can get into again with this is going to be a big topic of discussion, is how things change in business in a short amount of time. But he's on 5 acres, and we're about to plant out, I think, another 3,000, 4,000 square metres of hydro seeding some lawn. So he wants a big lawn area. But, you know, the standard house block in Melbourne, I will honestly say, is probably a bit smaller than other states. And it always seems to have been that way. Like, terrace housing was a big thing in Melbourne, not a big thing in Sydney, Queensland or WA. There was a little bit around the Fremantle area in WA. But in Melbourne, all the inner suburbs are predominantly some form of terrace housing, or, you know, very, very small house dwellings. So it's definitely a bit of a Melbourne thing. I'm sort of, in a straight line, I'm about 15 k's from the CBD, I think, in a suburb known as Greensborough.
Okay, you're near Andy. leaf by leaf.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But I think he mostly does, does most of his work in the southeastern suburbs, I think.
He's based out near you.
Yeah, he's based out near me. He's in Briar Hill, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but
I
don't know how much work he... Yeah, I think he's sort of mostly focused on the southeast, and that is probably the best area in Melbourne to focus, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's a smart business move on his part.
Yeah, look, I think that's not just him, but one of the guys I spoke to in Melbourne was struggling to get his customers across the line from once a month mowing. Not gardening, mowing. And that's indicative of choosing a suburb where people don't want to invest in their yard. So it's like, all right, as long as once that grass hits a foot tall, I might leave it another week even, then come back and do it, please. Don't come in weekly, don't come in fortnightly.
Yeah, so we work on a fortnightly roster year round, minimum. Yeah. So all our customers now, we're there every fortnight year round. Some customers we're there more often than that, though at the moment with the economic conditions we're facing in Victoria, that's definitely not the case. But as a general rule of thumb, our services are based year round. So we have 24, 25 visits a year, depending how the year falls and everything works out. And in the winter months when the grass doesn't grow, we spend time in the garden. It could be pruning, it could be planting, it could be weeding, it could be repairing some garden beds. For example, in Melbourne, volcanic rock is a really common garden bed edge from sort of the 80s and 90s. And a lot of those the walls are starting to come away from the garden bed. And so I'm fortunate, one of my two IC is a landscaper. And so I just say to him, have at it and just fix it. And so, you might have a section of garden bed, it might be a 30 metre long garden bed and you have a 3 metre section where the rocks are falling out. And so you just get the rocks and he mortars them back in or concretes them back in, whatever he decides is suitable. That's his specialty, and fixes it. So we try our goal is to take care of all sections of the garden except for tree lopping. We don't do tree lopping.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. I would like to get into it. I'd like to get into it, but I would need to grow the team significantly before I could invest in that, because it's a completely different industry and you're diluting your focus and stuff like that. And so not necessarily the best, like trying to grow a business to just throw additional stuff in.
You basically need a whole new insurance policy for that.
Absolutely, you do. And like the risks with tree lopping or arborist work is just astronomical. We had a family friend when I was growing up, our next door neighbour, he was a tree lopper, and he was actually phenomenal. If you wanted someone who was really good at needing to place a tree where it needed to place, if it had to go in between two houses, he could drop a 40-metre tree in between two houses if it had to be. Obviously he tried to avoid it, but if you couldn't rope it so you could lower down limbs safely, then he could. And I'm pretty sure he did a forestry apprenticeship, so he was working in national parks and forests and stuff originally.
So he'd done a lot of falling timber for milling and whatever.
Massive, and he was from New Zealand, so but he's just he was unreal. He's still going today. He'd have to be in his 60s now.
A lot of the tree loppers I know, they just run with a crane these days, so they pretty much have a crane on call. They have their buddy who's a crane operator, and it's like, all right, where are we off to today?
If you can get a crane in there, that's great. I grew up in the areas that I grew up, which were Warrandyte and Kangaroo Ground, and once we moved to Melbourne, because I'm actually originally from Sydney, but when I was a kid we moved down to Melbourne, and I lived in Warrandyte and Kangaroo Ground, and in Warrandyte, mate, you got no hope of getting a crane in. Like, the blocks in Mowersaurus are so steep, it's not funny, and everything is crammed in. As far as like there's a lot of laws regarding tree lopping and keeping the area green and stuff like that, and very highly planted. But you've got no way of getting equipment up there. You talk about a block gradient that you can't. In some cases, you can't get a car up in 2-wheel drive. So
I've done a little bit of work with a tree lopper. When I was fresh in business and I didn't have much winter work, I had a family friend who's a tree lopper. I went and did some work with him, and watching climbers work is insane.
It's nuts.
When you're talking hard access like that, you're sending a climber up, you're lowering it down limb by limb or piece by piece and carrying it out to the chipper, if you can carry it out to the chipper.
Yeah. I mean, I remember our block in Warrandyte, we removed like 30 trees or 40 trees, I think, total in the time we were there on a 3/4 acre block.
Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't even maybe 20% of the trees on the block. Like, it was crazy. And they were all gum trees, and they were massive. They were absolute monsters of things. So, I definitely, not my cup of tea. I could never do it. One, I'm scared of heights, so that rules me out straight away. So, but yeah, we sort of focus on the garden maintenance and lawn maintenance. Do apologise, just had an alert come up, but I can just ignore that.
Now, when I was a kid, we had a row of pine trees along the front fence line. Our property was 2.5 acres, and climbed the pine trees because it's like climbing a ladder. But then there was a big gum tree beside this pine tree, so we could climb, halfway up this pine tree and then transfer across to the gum. And my brother was, my brother was like a monkey. He was up and down all over the place, and I climbed up, got over to the limb on this gum tree, and panicked.
Yeah. See, when I was a kid, I used to love climbing trees. Then I got older and realised it really hurts when you fall. So,
yeah, it's not the fall that hurts; it's the thought of it. It's like I'm not moving, because if I move, I might fall, and then you get stuck.
Yeah, I fell 3.5 meters and broke my back in 3 places. So, pain hurts. I promise you, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wouldn't recommend it.
I'm glad that wasn't me.
yeah. But so with like, I don't know, I suppose with what we do and people having trouble with not getting people on board onto their schedule, like, I mean, we're a set and forget type thing. Like, we tell our customers, we're like, this is what it is. Everything's written out in the quote. We've got our programs fully written out. And our visit schedules are all automated. So, you know, we can get into a bit of that and talk about how I created the programs, I suppose, if that's something you're interested in hearing about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what I looked at with when I started my business is going, all right, if I want somebody on fortnightly routine cuts, then I've got them for about 20, maybe 21 cuts, maybe 19 cuts a year. And that gives you fortnightly cuts through the growth period and then once a month through the winter. Right? So what you're saying, and this is what I found, but down the other direction, is sort of bump them up to weekly in summer and still leave them at monthly in winter, and I get about 26 cuts out of the year. But you're saying 25, 26 cuts a year is where a lot of your customers are. Yeah,
so what we actually do is we just have a fortnightly schedule. We have 3 tiers of programs, and I found this absolutely invaluable for setting up the business. We had a lower budget one, and then one which was what I wanted our predominantly for our income to come from, which is our mid tier, and then a high tier business, which is like, you know, cylinder mowing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm the only person on the top tier program. So you've got not as many lawn freaks as I'd like, but you know,
you got a Mowmaster at home then.
Yeah, I wish I had a Mowmaster, mate. I'll be honest, if I had one of those, I would absolutely love it. But we have our 3 tiers, and the top tier is the only one that has, I think the top tier is currently sitting at 45 visits a year to the property.
Yeah, okay, so weekly for a big chunk of the year.
Big chunk of the year, and then fortnightly through winter, and that's literally just because the grass doesn't grow. So we close for 2 weeks over Christmas, and depending on how Easter falls, and that's where that sort of 24, 25 visits comes in, depending on how Easter falls, depends on whether you get a visit that schedule or not. Because, you know, we have weird public holidays that sometimes pop up. Like, I think there was 1 year in Melbourne where I think out of a 2-week period we only had 4 work days or 5 work days because the way the public holidays were grouped together.
That sucks.
Yeah, that was a challenge. I think, yeah. So just depending how everything works, but our goal is to beat a property every fortnight. We cut lawns in winter. We only cut them every other visit, and what might happen is, and this is really common, is in Melbourne it's very common for people to have two different types of grass. So they'll have feature grass, which I don't know why people do this, but everyone seems to love buffalo as a feature grass. And
it's great up here, up north.
Sorry?
It's great further north.
Oh, yeah. It's just in Melbourne it struggles because we don't have enough daylight hours in winter, and people use it as a feature grass in their backyard, and a lot of people have heavy dogs in Melbourne. And the root structure and the fact it grows on stolons and instead of rhizomes predominantly means that it gets ripped to shreds by their pets. But what might be common is we might have a buffalo grass in the backyard and then a kikuyu rye mix in the front yard, and that I would say is a really common mix in Melbourne. Really common.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the kikuyu rye mix, the kikuyu will grow until about this time in June. Just for the people who are referencing, we're almost at the end of June. We're in the last week of June pretty much. That's right. And because it will keep pushing on until the winter solstice, which is the 21st of June, you'll still get growth out of kikuyu until that period. I've got one customer that's pure kikuyu, and we're still, every fortnight, we're still taking about... We cut that lawn at... I think we cut it... it's a little bit hard because we use the Greenworks 30-inch, and we set it to 2-inch. Yeah. But because that's a heavy mower, you're actually cutting more at 35 mil. Like, if I put other mowers set to 35 mil, they're generally cutting about the same height as what the Greenworks does at 2-inch. Yep. And we're cutting about 2 inches off the top every 2 weeks of that still.
Okay.
And that that's also decent. Comes into our treatment plants. So
what I've found, most of Australia, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking Tasmania or Cairns and Darwin, most of Australia has similar grass growth. And that means usually from around the beginning of May, most grass has slowed down or stopped. In my area, I find it often stops at the beginning of May, end of April. But this year's been really curious because we haven't had those really cool nights. We're starting to get them now. But I went and bought a little ground thermometer, stick it in the soil and see what it reads. But
that's a really handy tool. That's a very underrated tool.
I still haven't proven this one with the ground thermometer though, but my theory is that when the air temperature gets down under 10 degrees, so we get to single digits, that's overnight, that's when the grass slows down. Yep.
Yeah, depending on... I've found that average temperature makes a bigger difference, and I found once your average temperature gets below about 18 to 20 degrees, and that being the peak and the the cool when you add them up, that's when your growth sort of starts to die off or really slow down. But what you just mentioned, the ground thermometer, we used to use that to time our pruning when I was working in the vineyard, and we could literally go, okay, we would be able to measure, and we had like certain areas where the vineyard I worked for had some really good records. They had records going all the way back to the 70s when it was first planted out. And we would actually use a ground thermometer to work out when was the right time to prune it, and we would have to get the soil temperature down to a certain temp before we would prune.
It's really hard to find records on ground temperature.
It is.
I've tried.
That was literally just the fact that the original owners, it had been sold multiple times by the time I worked there, but the original owners had just made it part of their practice.
Nice.
So, but I like that idea of using a thermometer to try and work it out, because it's funny. I've actually noticed there's two different types of growth, and I don't know if people agree or disagree with me, but I've noticed there's two different types of growth with lawns, especially in Melbourne, and this is because of predominantly where we see the growth, and predominantly where I am. One of it is like a topside growth. So it's like you see the growth, but it's only coming from the leaf. So in summer, for example, we only see growth from the leaf. We don't see the crown height come up much.
Yeah.
Right? And what I put this down to, and I'll explain in a tick, is root shedding. So I've noticed in summer and winter we see topside growth. So you see the growth of the leaf blade itself. And then in spring and in autumn, we see a lot of the crowns. That's when the crown really sort of starts to grow, if that makes sense. And I've also noticed that taking core samples and like with a plugger or what they use on to transfer the holes on a golf green. When they do that and you do it through the seasons, if you get someone who takes photos of it, and I've noticed that when I've taken photos of root structures, actually watching the root structure prune throughout a season and seeing it how it grows in spring and autumn. And so you notice root structure depth, and that's when we tend to notice crown growth. And then in summer and winter, in particular in summer, you see vertical growth, but you don't see much thickening of the lawn, and that's because the crown's not thickening up, and it's actually root shedding. That's something that I've noticed that definitely has changed my approach to lawn care as well.
I got my brother to make a soil sampler for me. So it's a 2-inch stainless tube with a foot pedal and a handle on it. And then it's got a side taken out of it, so you can slide the sample up through the tube. And what I found, it's great for doing exactly what you're saying in terms of checking out the depth of the root and whether you've got a bad thatch problem or anything else. You can check on disease really easily, grubs, all those sorts of things. It's really obvious. But
soil structure.
I found I take that soil sample out, and I'll go out after we're finished talking, and I'll take about 3 out, and I'll just use them as a little bit of a top dress where I've got a hollow in my yard, and I'll put the dog poo in those holes.
I hate it when people do that. Dog poo is like my mortal enemy.
But it's in the hole; it doesn't come back.
No, that's a good thing to do. We actually do as part of our. I suppose I'll dive into this. So, with our lawn care programs, we actually do soil sampling, testing, and get an analysis and a lab test done. And that way we know what somebody's lawn actually needs, what their soil needs. And so, with having the core sampler to pop it in and have the shoot out the side, you're right, it's fantastic for checking for thatch, for disease, for grubs. When you're doing soil structure analysis, you only need to go down about 100 mil. Again, this comes from my background working in vineyards, because that was very, very important to make sure we had soil structure correct for fruit yield and stuff like that. But that's how we make sure our customers' lawns are sort of looking tip top. Is our top tier property, our top 2 programs. We'll actually take core samples, and then we will just add a few nutrients into their mix if it needs topping up on anything. And it's one thing that's really common is there's a lot of excess nitrogen that is in the soil that a lot of people don't realise that the nitrogen levels are through the roof. But one of the biggest, probably biggest thing that we see a lack of is manganese. Is it manganese? I can't remember how to say it. But
manganese,
or whatever you say.
Manganese.
The one that says MG on the test board. When that comes back, that is quite common. One of the in Melbourne, one thing that we notice is quite low, and that's pretty common. And now I'm getting to the point where I can almost look at a lawn and be like, I don't even need to test this. I know this is going to be an issue. And it's quite common.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Once you start testing things like that, your mind starts observing what the growth is like and the colour of the grass. And one of those things that I've noticed around here is buffalo in winter will change colour quite substantially.
Yep.
Right? Particularly with a cold winter, you get a couple of frosts and all of a sudden the buffaloes turn purple.
Yep. Purple, or if you're lucky, white if you're unlucky. Like if you get some real major frost, you'll get major burn and you'll lose all the colour out of it.
And I've seen that, particularly if there's a lot of moisture in the ground, because what's happening is the ice from that moisture is actually destroying the leaf molecules.
Correct, it's doing that, and if your soil temps get really low, like we had a couple of nights in Melbourne, it was either last winter or the winter before, and Gary will remember this from Greenworks. He'll remember this well because he had just moved from Queensland and he was shocked. But we had a couple of mornings that were like -3, -4. And I, out of curiosity, grabbed my soil sampler and went to bang it in the ground. And I was like, I want to see how cold the soil is. And I had ice down about 3 centimetres in the ground. And I was like, oh, we're in a lot of trouble. I was like, I didn't see this happening.
So we don't get to -3 here, right?
Yeah,
we typically, on an average winter, we'll get 1 or 2 frosts. Okay, if you're a little bit closer to the water, so the lake or the ocean, then you don't get the frost, right? But I'm 10 minutes from Lake Macquarie, west of Lake Macquarie, so we'll get a couple of frosts a year. But then you get the odd year where it's frost every day for a month.
Yeah.
And I went to Cape York in 2018.
Yeah.
And my wife calls me up and she says, we had -3 and the pipe in the ceiling burst above our laundry.
Oh. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, that's side story. We're going on too many sidebars. Come back to the important stuff here.
Yeah. Water main freezing is a problem in Melbourne.
I bet.
Water mains freezing is a significant issue. We used to have it happen all the time when I was a kid growing up, in particular in Warrandyte, actually. My dad ended up having to wrap the water main in insulation, so that gives you an idea of and cold temperature is really traumatic for any lawn or garden. Doesn't matter if it's a winter garden or a winter lawn, like a cold season lawn. When you actually get freeze, like ice on it freezes. It's a major problem. I remember thinking when I was a kid, running across frosty lawns and feeling them crunch under my feet and thinking that felt really cool. And as someone who ended up in the horticultural industry, as a career and building a business out of it, the level of trauma that does to plants it's phenomenal that they can survive.
All the vessels in that leaf are bursting from the ice.
Yeah, and there's a lot you can do to avoid it too. So we put down an iron treatment at the start of June, right? And everyone tells me that it's the wrong time of year to do it, but what I've learned is that it reduces the chance of you getting frost. So I don't know what the science is behind it. I don't know whether it's because it helps the plant because it's a darker colour, maybe it's absorbing a bit more warmth through the day, or I don't know if it's the coating that the iron puts on it, but I've definitely noticed. I've literally done A and B testing on the same lawn, and seen a reduction when iron's applied correctly. Now we don't just go and bomb a lawn with iron. Like it's not like I'm going to go and go 400 mil of pure iron per 100 square meters. No, that would be probably not.
Yeah,
the best
you kill it.
Yeah, but you can. We put a light dressing of iron and kelp down as we come into the very last weeks of May and early June. I also, in regards to our applications, I actually time our applications off solstice, not off the calendar months.
Yeah, nice. That's good.
So, for example, we've just hit the 21st of June. So it's the 23rd today, but we hit 21st of June over the weekend. So winter's only really arriving now,
Yep.
And you can tell the difference in temperature from 2 weeks ago when, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I walked outside at like 7 o'clock in the morning and it was 15 degrees. This morning I walked outside and the feels like temperature was 0.5, and that was at 7 a.m.
Yeah, so we had a sub 10 degree night back in April, like one or two of them, not even back to back. And then we didn't get any more until this last week. So last week we were 13 to 16 degrees overnight, and this week, like, I've had gloves, beanie, the whole kit and caboodle. I start work at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, you're an early riser.
Yeah, well, like, I'm on a commercial site, so I can start before 7 a.m, which is your normal noise curfew here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is chilly. It's like between 5 and 7 degrees, and I'm like, tomorrow morning I'm going to take the day off and go motorbike riding, but I'm going to wait until 9 a.m. before it's warm enough to go riding.
Nice. I'm also a fan of riding on two wheels, so I haven't done it for a few years now, but I absolutely love it.
Well, if you break your back, it's probably one of those things that's not easy to get back onto. I've gone to adventure bikes because you're more upright, so it's much easier on my old spine. My spine's at it.
No, I've always been riding super bikes, so like I broke my back by falling, not in a bike crash, but they wanted to fuse my spine when I broke it. And I called up a mate of mine who used to race ASBK, Australian Superbikes. And I said, you've had some pretty traumatic back injuries. I said, they want to fuse my spine. What's my risk with riding? And he goes, where have you broken your back? And I said, L1. He goes, don't let them fuse it. He goes, if they fuse it and you have a serious accident, you'll become a paraplegic. He goes, losing that flex point in your lower spine is really, really dangerous. And he had multiple broken vertebrae from racing.
Yeah, we're going to lose most of my listeners talking about this, but I don't mind. I went for a ride through Victoria a few years ago now, and I wearing a hoodie like this, and then the helmet. Like, I had leather jacket over the hoodie, and a thermal layer under the hoodie, and another thermal layer, and then the leather jacket, and then my helmet was pushing on the back of the hood, and so. When you're on a sport bike, and I was on a S1000R, which is naked, it's not a full sport, right?
Yeah, I know.
So you're leaning forward and tilting your head like this. Yeah. When I got back from that 4 days of riding, I could not get on my bike for 12 weeks.
Yeah, your neck and your back was just cramped.
Well, C67's destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, I got an MRI because I was like, I'm in pain, I want to die.
Yeah.
And got an MRI, and it's like, all right, there's a massive disc herniation in C67, which is about here in my neck.
Yep.
And I went to see a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon's like, I'm not touching it. You can get over it, mate.
No, I've got C6, C7 problems as well. Very, very common. Actually, really common in our industry, I found out.
Cashflow has been a supporter of Aussie Lawn Stars since its very first episode. Since we have formed a partnership with Cashflow, a lot of Aussie Lawn Stars have made orders using the code LawnStars10, and I really appreciate your support. To continue supporting Aussie Lawn Stars, you can purchase your supplies and industry products from the Cashflow website with the code LawnStars10 in all caps.
Every gardener I've spoken to has a problem with their neck or their lower back. Not necessarily their mid-back, but upper and lower sort of spinal areas seem to be a common issue, which I guess comes down to the way that you work. Like, realistically, you're bent in awkward positions most of the day. You don't spend much time standing upright.
Yeah, our work is hard on the body.
It's extremely hard, and I think it's one of the things that most people neglect to take care of is their body, and they don't realise how bad it can get. You know, if you're lucky, if you're one of those people who's lucky who hasn't had major injuries and stuff like that and don't have to contest with it, people don't realise how much taking care of your body is a priority. And this is something that I realised early on when I started going back into this, because I broke my spine like 11, 12 years ago now. But when I got into this, and I didn't realise how important it was to take care of your bodies and do things like Pilates and stuff like that. And you've got to realise your body is a major part of this role, of this job. And I think it's something where people lack, and in all honesty, I think it's something where people should spend some time, because you'd be amazed how much productivity you can increase just by making sure that you are in fit working conditions. Especially when it comes to gardening.
So I was 33, turning 33 when I started my business.
Yep.
And there was a guy in his early 50s who'd been doing this work, going to my church, and he's like, my hips hurt, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt, my shoulders stuffed. And I'm like, oh, well, I know that the work's hard on your body, but I'm fine. And now I'm 49, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, your body's really, really paying the toll. So I've only got 2 joints that are still good in my body, and that's my knees. Which is weird because my whole family has problems with their knees, and I don't. And I'm just like, please don't give me problems because everything else is stuffed. So then that's from years of abuse and hard physical work, and not being so sensible when I was younger. I suppose we'll say that, making foolish decisions.
So full circle. I'm not sure why we started on this topic, but go back to your super bikes, get off them and get an adventure bike, because you sit upright and you stand up a whole lot, and it's really good for your body.
I mean,
we're talking about
a few mates who ride them. I haven't ridden now for a few years. I actually sold I had a GSXR. I had the first GSXR 1000R to come into the country. I ordered it 12 months before it arrived, and put my deposit down to secure the first bike to arrive in Australia, other than the Suzuki development bike. I was very, very keen on that, and I sold it to get the business going. And this is I suppose, if we want to delve back into the business stuff and some of the tough choices you have to make a business successful. So I started my business. This is no word of a lie. I didn't have $1 to my name when I started the business, and I was seriously struggling. We were in COVID lockdowns. Everything was a nightmare. We were living under restrictions. There was no work around. Nobody was hiring for anything. And so I borrowed. Man, it seems nuts, like, to think about it now. I borrowed my brother-in-law's Ford Laser.
Hatchback?
No, it was a sedan, actually. It was a sedan. It was shocking. I still remember my next door neighbour put a fair bit of faith in me and said, "Yeah, no, mate, you can borrow my mower to get started, blah, blah, blah." And because I'd serviced his equipment, because I got a bit of mechanical knowledge and stuff like that. And he said, "Yeah, you can borrow my mower. You can, if you're going to start a business, give it a crack, man. Go for it, And really thankful to him for this. So, Chris, if you actually see this, mate, I really appreciate it. And then my best mate had just found out he was allergic to grass. And he said, "Well, I'll do you a deal. You mow my lawn for free 3 times, and I'll give you my whippersnipper." And it was a what brand was it? It was Makita bench shaft. And I thrashed that thing for about 6 months to get the business going. But the first lawn I did, I had the car that I borrowed from my brother-in-law, the mower I borrowed from my neighbour, and a whippersnipper I did a deal with my best mate to start the business, where I mowed his lawns 3 times for free. And that was in the very end of 2020, I want to say. And that was before the business had a name, before it had anything. My first paycheck was $50. And I used that money to go and buy a broom so I could sweep up after I was done. So I started from nothing, like absolutely nothing. And now I have 2 full-time employees, a casual, and we don't do any ride-on work, so we're not huge. We're not huge in that regard, but we have a system and a I suppose a process that works, that I've designed and I've built out through the last 5.5 years. And it started with listening to what my customers wanted. So when I first started, my customer was like, "I just need my grass cut." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I was like, I just need money at this point, right? So I'm like, I just need money. And I was doing lawns that I can't believe the price that I did some of these lawns for and how long I spent doing them. But you're learning. So this comes into starting a business and really learning what it takes to run a business properly. And then customers started saying, "Man, it'd be great if you could take care of the weeds." And I was like, "Okay, all right." So I went and bought a $90 Bush Ranger pump sprayer. And then I bought it without realising that it had one of those nozzles that you can't change, and it's just a conical nozzle. It's not a fan nozzle. And I didn't look at the shop because I was doing this as a customer. I went and did this the same day the customer asked me. So they said, "I'd be great if you could take care of the weeds." I can do that. I'll go and get something. I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah,
literally. And I already had some bow and arrow, and I've just been using that in a hand sprayer. And I literally just been testing the product because everyone raved about bow and arrow. And I've been out of the industry for over 10 years. I've been out of the horticulture industry for over 10 years. And that product didn't exist when I was an apprentice, when I did my horticulture. That's
about right. So there was one or two broadleaf products available back then. And
dicamba. Camber M and dicamba was the two big ones.
Yeah, so they were the first ones. And then we had MCPA and bromoxynil come into the market.
Yeah, I don't think I ever used that back then.
They pretty much banned that now, all but banned it. I think they've banned it for residential use. I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. But yeah, and so I went to the shop, I went to a dealer, picked up a Bush Ranger backpack sprayer, went home, grabbed I had a 500mm bow and arrow, so made the mix up, sprayed the lawn, realised it was a conical spray nozzle. Not great. Took me forever to do it, and charged them $40 for
it. Working at $10 an hour.
Yeah, pretty much. And then once I got that under control, I worked out how to switch it to a fan nozzle and stuff like that. You know, these are all basic steps you will undertake in doing any business. You will make mistakes and you will buy the wrong stuff, and then you'll have to find a way to make it work.
Well, I just want to say something there, like before you go further. You started with nothing.
Yeah.
You started with a failed water gun business. Do you want to borrowed and begged and stole to get the gear you needed to get started lawn mowing?
Yeah.
One of the things, and I saw this come up with an interview I did recently with Jab Mo out at Orange, talking about all of the expensive gear he has. And he's like, I just reinvested in my business over, I think he's been in business 18 months. And I'm like, he's got $200,000 or $300,000 worth of gear sitting there. If you're starting from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Like you are.
Yep.
You got to put food on the table. I don't know if you got kids at the same time. You'd say you.
No, it was me. It's just myself and my partner. So she and luckily she was able to support herself and take care of bills that I couldn't take care of and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you could reinvest something back into the business, not use the whole lot to put food on the table and pay rent.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I still was paying rent, and I was still paying for food, but it'd be like it might be 1 week I couldn't afford groceries, or I might be she would pay the rent, and the next week I'd pay her back for the rent and stuff like that. It was the cash flow was very destabilized, but like.
And I'm glad you used that word. Cash flow is what it comes down to, and in those early days, it's not easy to get.
It's not easy. So the first week I made $50.
Yeah.
The second week I made $40.
Yep.
The third week I made $120, and I felt so rich. I'm not going to lie, that $120 week, I was like, oh my god, I can put more than fuel in the car.
You would have just about been ready to buy a Macca's coffee on the way to work.
Oh mate, I was just about ready to move to Toorak. Then I think by the end of the second month, I'd gotten to the point where I was making $300 to $400 a week.
That's respectable when you're starting from where you are, and the goal there is cash flow, right? So you want to know that cash in, cash out is going in a positive direction.
Correct. And I built up from there. After about 12 months, I want to say I was doing, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and this is something that people really need to accept, is that when you are starting something, you are going to make mistakes. And if you do not have the money to purchase a course or something of the like, if someone came to me and said, I want to start actually they did. My mate's son came to me and said, hey, I want to start cutting lawns and I want to build a business like you have. Yeah. And I actually said to him, I said, mate, before you do anything, because he's been handed a business, I actually said to him, I go, there's a course by a bloke in WA. And I said, I said, go and do that. It's $800, but it could save you 10,000. And so I sent him the link for that. I don't know if he signed up or not, but it's on him. Yeah. But you have to learn that you are going to make some mistakes. So one of the big mistakes I made was not actually calculating how much things were costing. Right? Like as in for me, not for the customer. I was looking at things going, oh yeah, I want to work to about $80 an hour plus GST. Right? And I was like, that'll see me with a good wage. That'll see me. I figured my expenses were about $10 an hour per billable hour.
Back in 2010, that would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome, but this was 2021. 2021, 2022.
But it wasn't far off what a lot of people were doing at that stage.
It wasn't, but the reality was I didn't actually calculate my expenses because I'm talking about per billable hour, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And it turned out by the time I reinvested in new equipment and whatnot, I was basically working for $10 per billable hour for the first year.
That hurts, doesn't it?
It does. It's a real kick in the nuts.
When you go back home and the wife's like, oh, we need to buy a new car or we need to look at buying a house, not just renting, and you go, well, what am I taking to the bank?
Yeah, I've got nothing to take to the bank. It's just the way it is when you're first starting. And if you hit a tumultuous time in business, like I'll be quite open, at the moment with what's happened in Melbourne in the last couple of months, our figures are absolutely shocking compared to where they were. And it's a real struggle.
I think Australia-wide, we're in a big hole at the moment, but Melbourne, Victoria is like... Anyway, we won't get political. We'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. But my particular area where I'm in is getting smashed because you can go and get a job, and this is no joke. I have a friend's daughter who walked out of high school, and I said, what are you going to do for a job? So I'm just going to go and hold a lollipop thing. And because we got the big bill happening 500 metres from... Not even 200 metres from my house, right? One of the biggest projects, the North East Link project is happening about 200 metres from my house.
Yeah.
And I said, what are they paying you? She goes, my base rate's $38 an hour. She goes, and then because of the fact that it's the project's worth so much, I get some penalty rate, and that's another $7 an hour. And I was like, okay. And she goes, and
so
then
45.
Because that's 45, and then she goes, and then we have a meal allowance of $30 a day. And I was like,
wow.
Okay. And I was doing the sums in my head. I'm like, so this is up near $48 an hour. She's like, and then because if it's inclement weather, we get penalties on top of that as well.
Because they're standing out in the weather all day.
She told me something else. I was kind of shocked. Like just a simple job for holding the lollipop. They've got to have two people. So one person watches, and then half an hour, they rotate every half hour. Not allowed to stand in the same spot for more than 30 minutes.
I get that because I've worked on a factory production line, and as soon as you're doing a routine job where you're doing the same thing for more than half an hour, the risk of injury is significant. So you swap out, and if you can swap to another job, you can. But if you're on the roadside holding lollipop, you just take a break. Next person steps in.
Next person steps in, and you go and do whatever for the next 30 minutes. But so we got people at that low of a sort of a skills required to do a job, if that makes sense. The entry level is quite low. And so we got those people making near $50 an hour. So everybody's sort of moved to my area. I think in 1 year, house price in my area went up 27%. Our rent jumped up 25%. No, actually jumped up 29% in 1 year, which was just astronomical. But yeah, it's when you're first starting out, if we go back to like sort of the starting of the business and getting things going, learning to calculate costs is really, really important. I had my first year. I actually just reviewed this coming into this discussion for today's podcast. I actually reviewed my figures, and I looked at my costs versus my earnings. And the first year I worked, I think I did a total of about 45,000 in sales. That's an average of about $900 a week. Call it that. That's a lot to come from nothing, if that makes sense.
Especially what you were saying, like your first week you did $50, your second week you did 40. That's a big steep improvement over the whole year to get to that point where your average was $900 a week.
Correct. And people don't necessarily realize, like, you see the people who are successful and you think, oh, it's like that for everyone, and it's just not. It's a really long, hard slog. It took me 12 months to get to the point where I would consider that, I think by the end of the 12 months I was doing about 12. We had lockdowns the first year I was working too, so that made it a nightmare. I would have been quicker had we not had lockdowns, but we had lockdowns. So,
of course, yeah.
But I reinvested in the business. I focused on doing the job properly rather than getting the job done, if that makes sense. Quality over quantity.
We're going to take a deeper dive into that a bit, but you keep telling the story first.
Quality over quantity, and it was to satisfy the customers, if that made sense. And then for the first 2 years, I want to say almost every job I got was by word of mouth. I didn't have any advertising. I would occasionally boost a post on Facebook, and that was back when you could do that and actually get inquiries coming. It's not the way it is anymore. Not down here anyway. And the second year we went from, I think it was 45,000 the first year. The second year was about around 90 to 100,000 total sales. Year 3 was about 165, 170. Year 4 was over 200. And I think technically I'm in year 5. I'm in year 5 now, and like I think year to date currently we're sitting around. Bear in mind I didn't have full timers for the whole of this year, and a lot of it was set up training them up to get up to scratch. And I think now we're sitting up around the 300 mark. We'll be over 300. I'll need to look at the figures, but I think it would be close to 320 or something like that. But in that, we've had a lot of struggles. A lot of it's been staff management. That's been the hardest one. I have had... let me just count out my employees first of all.
And since say you count, and that's pretty quick business growth over what we're talking about, a fairly honest, meager start. I took longer than you to do that. I suppose I take business very seriously, and a lot of people think, oh, you cut grass, like who cares, like that's all you do kind of thing. And I'm like, no mate, first of all, I'm a horticulturalist and my staff member are a horticulturalist. One of them's also a landscaper with 12 years experience in landscaping. And I'm like, we take what we do serious. And I constantly review what I'm doing and try and improve. Doesn't matter what I'm doing in life at all. But yeah, I would say I would have had 8 or 9 employees total come through the business. Out of that, I would rehire probably 50% of those. That's good.
And I've had, some pretty... I had one employee who appeared good on the surface and I thought would be a fantastic addition to the business. And they ended up costing me in lost sales. There was about $20,000 in lost sales. And I had... they also stole about... Well, couldn't be proven, so went missing. About $4,000 worth of equipment. Now,
ouch.
What people don't realise is to make that $4,000, I've got to sell another $10,000. $10,000 or $12,000 to make that $4,000, right?
I had a very questionable employee. I won't say he stole anything, and I'm not even suggesting it. But his work ethics were so questionable, I was just like, I'm sorry, I haven't got any work for you.
Yeah, so yeah. I'm ruthless now. Like, if I suspect that you're ripping me off, I'll see you later. It'll be a phone call and it's done. I'll get legal advice first. I'm very fortunate that I have very good access to legal advice. But no, if I suspect something, it's my approach to it is very now. It wasn't because I wanted to be. I never understood. I wanted to be the boss that people liked and people were friends with and whatnot. Yep. And I didn't want to be a prick, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that hurts. It burns. It absolutely wrecks your business. One of the things I have said, and Donald Trump's a great example of this.
Yeah.
Not getting political here.
Yeah, it's not, fine.
Seriously. But a good business owner, a good CEO, whatever label you want to put on yourself, as a solopreneur, whatever it is, you're making business decisions. It's not choosing your wife.
No.
It's choosing what is going to make your business succeed or fail. And
Correct.
You have to be ruthless. You have to be heartless. You have to go, if my business fails because he stole $4,000 worth of gear, not only does it affect him negatively, because he might not think about that. He might be just so short-sighted he's just stealing the gear and hocking it off for drugs. Who knows? I'm not making any
correct. Yeah.
But if my business fails, it affects him. It affects my other employee. It affects my own ability to function. It affects my partner, my children. It means there's a bankruptcy. It means that the whole lot has huge ramifications. If I can point my finger at somebody who's working for me and say, this is not working out, here's a list of reasons why. Here's my documentation that says this is what your expectations were. You're not meeting them. See you later.
Yep.
It's not heartless, even though it might seem like it. It is actually the most decent thing to do. As a business owner, you have to make those decisions quickly and right. You have to make sure that the expectations are set out very clearly up front, so that when that person's not meeting expectations or something like that comes up where you're like, I think they're stealing.
Yeah.
See you later, straight out the door. You don't have time to lose more tools, to lose more business, to lose jobs. It hurts too much.
Yeah, and so actually I forgot a major part of when I started my business. I was actually recovering from cancer at the time.
Wow.
I completely forgot about that side of it, and this comes into where employees shaft you. So I'd had cancer in 2019 and 2020, and I had that taken care of first half of 2020, and started the business around October 2020 is when we were able to work again in Melbourne, September, October.
Yep. The cancer always leaves a question mark, but by the sounds of it, that question mark's not massive and in front of you. It's sort of more of a case of going, you're fairly happy where you are. You got under control.
I'll deal with it if I have to deal with it. There's no point trying to fret over it. I know a lot of people really do.
Yeah.
I had it come back a second time in 2022. 2022, looking at, and I had 2 employees at the time, and I'd hired them specifically. I'd hired the first one because I was like, to be honest, I was like, they seem like they were interested in the industry and stuff like that, and they wanted to grow into it. And I was like, they got some management experience and whatnot. And then I was like, but they can't necessarily do all the physical tasks. So my idea was I'd hire people to replace me and then build the business up. Yep. And then the week before I went into surgery the second time for cancer, which was in 2022, they quit. Both of them.
Ouch.
And apparently they'd had a discussion between themselves that they didn't know that I would survive the surgery. And they didn't.
So they were hedging their bets, and they were like, "We're out. Go and find a job."
Yep. And so that's where I found a really good employee as far as loyalty and always doing things right. he has his limitations with technology, right? He's just not technologically savvy and stuff like that. But when it comes to, if you want something done properly and you want everything to look perfect and you just need stuff done, he's fantastic. And he still works for me today. But he saved my ass in that position. But so grew out of that, and then had good and bad employees until I learnt what a good employee is. And I think this is really important for those people who want to scale. You need to know what a good employee looks like a genuinely employee that genuinely impresses you. And the first one I had was a woman by the name of Megan, and she doesn't work. She only worked for me for a short period of time, and she was traveling around Australia. And she is an absolute legend of a person. She's a great person in general, but she genuinely impressed me with what she could get done in a time frame at the quality standard she could get it done at, and that
girls are some of the best employees. Not always, but some are.
Yeah. And the way she could manage the environment around her and bring techniques in that I hadn't seen done before, that she had learned from people she'd worked with previously, and how she would adapt to situations. Nice. It's a very rare find to find someone like that. And I've told her, if you ever come back to Melbourne and you want to work in Melbourne, just call me. I'll give you a job. I will find the work for you, because you're awesome. One in a million. She's phenomenal. But so I learned what a really, really good employee was and what characteristics that involved. And then I realised this was a big part for me. Was I actually realised that the business wasn't at a point where it was sustainable to have employees, because I hadn't worked out my expenses properly.
That's a big one. That's a real big one.
And working out my expenses. So that was, I want to say that was 2023. So that was the first year we hit. I think we did about 140 or so in sales that year. I can't remember. I've mentioned the figures before. 2023 or 2024, one of the two. It's 2026 now. It would have been 2024. Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have been 2024, and then once she moved on, I spent a lot of time working on the business to drag the rubbish out of it. The customers who were difficult with paying their bills on time.
This sounds interesting. So you're getting to the point where you're starting to look at the efficiency of customers, not just employees.
Yeah. So I started looking at efficiency very seriously at the end of 2023, where my partner and I went to Perth for New Year's.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, this year I did roughly $140,000, right, in sales.
Yep.
That would have been actually, 140 to 160,000. Can't remember what it was. Anyway, I had roughly that amount in sales, and when we went to Perth for New Year's, I was owed over $10,000.
That is such a common thing in our industry, and there's not a lot of people that have really thought about how to convert owed money into cash flow quickly.
Correct. And so, don't mind me, I'm just adjusting my seat.
That's all right. It's, what are we, about an hour and a quarter in, we need to be comfortable, mate.
Yeah. And so, I basically cracked it. Like, a good analogy would be I threw the toys out of the pram.
The T-Rex got angry.
That's one way of putting it. Yeah. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. Like, I'm slogging my guts out, and myself and my casual worker were working pretty much side by side 3 days a week, if that makes sense. And I was doing 4 days on tools, 1 day on the business at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, we had one day, I'll never forget this. Him and I had one day where we started work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and everything that could go wrong with this job went wrong. So the customer wanted to supply the plants, and I said, "Yep, sure, that's fine." I said, "How many plants are going in?" And so we measured it out, and I told her how many plants.
Yep.
And she said, "Oh, I want to get these plants for down this second area here, and I only want to get 3." So I know that's no problem, so long as the pots are no bigger than sort of 20 centimetres in diameter. And so, or 20 or 30 centimetres in diameter, that should be fine. So the ones that were up the top of the property it was only a small backyard. They were all 20 to, I think they were all 30 centimetre pots. That was fine. Yep. I look at them and I'm like, yeah, that's all fine, cool. She's like, all right, I'll see you guys later. I'm like, okay, no worries, have a good one. We'll get this done for you. Should be done shortly. We walk around the corner and there are pots that would be 80 centimetres across. And about
so we're talking 100 litre pots now?
Bigger than that. Monsters. Like, these were magnolias. These were fully mature magnolias that were used for, I think it was a perfume. And she didn't know. Like, this is no reward on the customer at all. She didn't know that they were going to be this big. She just bought what was available. Anyway.
They getting expensive, though. Surely a bank account would have known. Like, it's...
Oh, yeah, no, her bank account knew. They were very expensive. And I queried it when she said, she said, no, they said they're not fully mature yet. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they were very, very expensive. These 3 plants, I think, cost somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000.
Just to be clear, right, if you're talking 20 centimetre pots, you're using a shovel to dig a hole or maybe a post hole digger. When you're dealing with these things, you're talking an excavator that's digging a massive big hole, making sure that you've got drainage beside the plant so that it doesn't flood it.
Yep, you're talking about everything. And we walk around the corner and see these massive things, and the kicker of this bit is they were going into clay and rock. Right?
Oh, man. I just want to hang up right now. I don't want to hear the rest of this.
This is a really good lesson to learn, right? Now, this customer, I will say, I'm going to say this was on me because I didn't supply the plants. And now, we don't quote how much it's going to cost to put a plant in the ground until we see what the customer's got. And that's just the rule. If they want to supply, no problem. But I said to them, they go, oh, how much would it be to put a plant? I said, it could be $10, it could be $3,000. Depends how big the plant is and where you want me to put it, But anyway, so I now have control of that aspect with customers, which is something we need to talk about as well, about how you control customer expectations and deliverables to a customer.
Yep.
And we didn't finish until 9:30 that night. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The clay wasn't clay; it was clay and rock. The auger, the insides of my knees were black and blue because I got an ego auger, so.
I know the one. I've got it.
Yeah, my business is we use predominantly electric tools. We don't use. We haven't used petrol since 2021. So
nice.
long time. The inside of my knees were black and blue from getting belted with the auger when it would grab a rock, and it was just about my wrist was stuffed and.
Yep.
Really hard day's labour. We didn't finish till 10 o'clock at night.
I did a plant out with an ego auger early this year. I'm pretty sure it was this year. It wasn't the end of last year.
Yeah.
And the scenario was 20 centimetre pots.
Yeah.
But there was, off the top of my head, there was about 40 plants.
Yep.
And one end of the garden bed was beautiful. Well, the auger just went straight in, pull it straight back out, put some really nice soil mix that I bought in there with some dynamic lifter to make sure it gets an extra boost.
Yeah.
Get to the other end of the garden bed, and it's like I'm not digging a big hole like you needed to dig, but just doing those last 4 holes absolutely broke me.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. We hit a when we were putting those plants in, we hit a stormwater pipe as well. So we had to repair that. There was no map for where the stormwater was running, so we eventually found the map for where the stormwater was running, and where we hit stormwater was 1.5 meters away from where it was meant to be run.
Yeah, so, this is a little known fact. When you're doing a excavation, and planting includes excavation even if it's only 20 centimetres down, you do a dial before you dig. And dial before you dig covers to the front boundary of the property. It does not show you what's inside the boundary.
Correct. It does not. And so we went off the floor plans that were available to us at the time, which were completely inaccurate. And we should have recognised it from the get-go, because where the water tank was in a different spot. And I was like, oh, they probably just moved it for whatever reason. Like, you know.
If they had water tank, was that a charged line then?
No, it was just an stormwater outlet.
But stormwater that's going to a tank. Or was
it wasn't going to a tank. It was on the exit side.
On the exit side, okay.
Overflowing out.
If it's going from your gutters to the tank, they're often charged.
Yeah, correct.
So you hit them and you got water going everywhere.
You got water going everywhere. This was just going out. But yeah, we hit this, and long story short, I was just fed up with the fact, like, that was a 36 or 38 degree day we were doing that. We worked everything up to 43, 40. I think there was one day we worked 44 degrees, and we worked from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. Like, we were doing monster days. And it was just like, things weren't calculated properly. Nothing was working. I was figured, at the time I was kind of stuck in the mindset of the more work you do, the more money you make.
That's a good, easy one to fall into.
Very, very bad mindset to fall into. At the time, I had 125 customers, right?
Yep.
And yeah, so we go away for this New Year's period, and I have no money. It's Christmas. I managed to scrape together some money for Christmas, and everyone gave me the same excuse. The only person who paid on time was my biggest client. Everybody else, the month of December, it was like no money came in at all.
Yeah, they're all spending on their kids.
They're spending on their kids. Oh, sorry, blah, blah. And you're trying to be nice. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I've done all this extra work for you, but no problem.
Yeah.
And you're getting quite upset, and you're getting quite emotional, and you feel quite devalued, to be frank, and it hits you in the gut a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to my partner, so I've got to fix this. And so, as I was saying earlier, I evaluate everything I do. Every day, everything gets evaluated. Most of it is internally within my mind. I don't have this process where I sit down and spend 4 hours writing everything out and then going, okay, now I've written that, now how can I improve that? A lot of this evaluation is done in my mind, and then going, okay, well, we have this process, but instead of writing the whole process out again, I'll go in and modify it, and I'll sit down for 5 minutes and modify a process.
Yep.
But I went, okay, I've got to fix this. And so the first thing I did was I brought in late payment fees. And I always had them, but I started to be to people, if they were a couple of days late, I was like, hey, just let you know, late payment fee applies from 7 days.
Yep.
Everyone gets one free, 2 if you've got extenuating circumstances. And I was always flexible with this stuff. I could have a customer you would know from having this, you end up with quite a personal relationship with some of your customers, and you find out, they've got a family member who's terminally ill. I had a customer whose child got hit by a car one day walking home from school, or I don't know the exact situation, but they were killed. But I had, you have relations, so there's always times when this stuff won't apply. But I got really firm on people paying on time and started following people up. And then I started getting to the point where I was like, okay, well, at this point, I was still charging per visit. And this is a system that I sort of put together over a bit of time. And I noticed people would skip services and stuff like that, and it was really messing around with my schedule and all this sort of stuff. And every gardener can relate to this. People be like, oh, I don't need you this week, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And in certain seasons, it might be 10 customers a week that do this. Now, at the time, I had 125 customers, so that's a big percentage to be losing in a week in a bad time of year. That would be, in Melbourne, that would be February, in the peak of summer, because most of our customers don't water their lawns, and in winter, when nothing grows. And I had all my customers at the time on a 2-week, 3-week cycle. 2 weeks through the summer months, 3 weeks in winter. Right?
Yep.
Winter being June, July, August. Although originally when I first started up, it was from May till October, so it was a longer winter period than what it is now. Yeah. But I had it set up on a 2-week through the growth period, 3-week through winter, which worked great when it was just me, because it meant in winter, every third week I had a week off, and that was my time to go and do stuff, right? If I want to go away, I could have some time off, do whatever. So I went through the process of noticing which customers were repeatedly late and consistently late with payments. And then I sort of said to them, hey guys, I need you to pay on time. And it'd get to the point where a customer was always like, my customers were always 2 to 3 visits behind on their payment.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. And I just sort of started calling people up one day and say, look, I need you to bring your account up to date. And they're like, oh, can I do it next week? I'm like, yeah, you can do it next week, but it has to be brought up to date. And so I started becoming a bit more firm with customers. Yeah. And then the flip side of this was a lot of these customers were on the cheaper end of the pricing scale too.
Yeah, that's funny how that works, isn't it? They're the ones that struggle to pay.
Yep, and they complain the most.
Did they start finding faults with your work?
They suddenly, I would get text messages, this wasn't done properly. And I'd be like, I remember saying to one customer, I'm like, that's not even in the scope of work. So they were complaining about this plant wasn't trimmed. I'm like, we only take care of your lawn.
Yep.
You didn't.
I had a classic story with this. Believe it or not, I'm a Pacific Islander. I was born in Tonga.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Right. I don't look like a Pacific Islander, but the point is, I've had several customers that are Pacific Islanders, and this one guy was really friendly, really nice. Probably goes to the same church I go to even, I don't know. He got me to mow his lawn, and it wasn't expensive. It was when I was undercharging. Right? Yeah. I did it for him probably half a dozen times. Mm-hmm. And he owed me $200 from late service.
Yep.
So he and I both agreed I would stop mowing while he got the arrears paid. Mm-hmm. 12 months later, he hands me the last $50.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, you know why I stopped you from mowing, don't you? Because you didn't do the edges properly. We both agreed I would stop mowing because he wasn't paying.
Yep. Yeah.
But no, he stopped me from mowing apparently because he didn't like the quality of my work. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I mean, you will get people who will nitpick over anything, as with any service or business.
Yeah.
People will complain over nothing sometimes.
Yeah.
But I always, one thing I will say is absolutely crucial is to validate your customer's complaint. So I have a rule: no customer is left unsatisfied unless I say so, right?
Yep.
And if I say so, it's because it is ridiculous what they are asking, right?
Yeah, irreconcilable.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, you didn't cut down that 20-metre tall tree. And I'm like, mate, you got us to trim a hedge.
Yeah.
We were never going to cut that tree. It's nowhere in the quote. What are you talking about? But if it's a mistake, and this is something that, I might not have detailed the job correctly when I quoted it, right? I wasn't accurate enough in what I put in the quote or didn't put in the quote. Regardless, that customer isn't happy, right?
And you fix it.
We fix it. Yeah. Guarantee it. We will fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
So long as it's not unreasonable, absolutely unreasonable, I will fix it. It means there's jobs that I have lost money on, like serious money, $1,000, $2,000, right?
Yep.
And it's, quite literally because that was my stuff up. We didn't have that addressed well enough, and because we didn't have that process addressed well enough, that's cost us money.
It's a tough lesson, isn't it, when you lose money because the quote's not spelt out clearly.
Correct, or because it's been interpreted incorrectly. And so it could have been interpreted incorrectly by an employee, and they've read the quote back to the customer after their, so it's all this, and this, and the customer's like, so that includes that, right? Employee's like, that includes that. Not knowing that, they're misinterpreting because they're assuming the customer's been honourable, right? I've had multiple customers who are not honourable, and when I say honourable, I mean as far as they're dishonest with the quote. They've added things in there, sneak stuff in. I allow for that in my quotes now. I actually have an error percentage for that. But we will satisfy the customer, right? It might mean that a job that was meant to take one person 1 day might take 2 guys 3 days. You know, that's the worst case scenario I've had. I had a job that I quoted for one person 1 day. It was a yard tidy up. What I put in versus when the employee arrived at the site and the customer sort of brought the quote out and said, well, this means this and this means that and blah, 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 even though the conversation with the customer that I had was very different. Yeah. My employee was like, how on earth am I meant to get this done in 1 day? And so they tore into it and started going hell-bent for leather. Yeah. And then I called them like 3 hours in. I'm like, how you doing, mate? You should be about halfway through. And he's like, halfway through? He's like, mate, I'm still in the first 10 metres of this garden. And I was like, what's going on? Anyway, we went through and he told me what had happened. And then he was upset. I was upset. Yep. But I wasn't upset at him. And he wasn't upset at me. We were upset about the situation. And so then, regardless, I said, mate, forget it. We will just do what the customer needs doing. And this is one of those jobs that really went off the rails. Like, it started raining halfway through the day. We had equipment expensed out that we had hired that we couldn't use to its full. Like, we were mulching up, trees and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch that was, everything just went wrong. But then we went back and we documented and I said to him, I said, now let's sit down for an hour and let's document everything that went wrong and let's find a solution for it. And this has become a really important process for me. When something goes wrong, I don't care if it cost us $5 or $5,000. I think this, like, if you were to bill 2 people out for 2 days plus equipment expenses, you talk 2.5 days, 2 people. Sorry, you are talking a $5,000 expense that you've cost yourself $5,000, right? Yeah, it's $5,000 error. So I said, so let's have a look at this and go, okay, that's a $5,000 error or that's a $5 error. Yeah. We went wrong here, here, and here. Yep. Now, let's fix that by doing this, and then we document that process. And this is continuing with everything we do. And then we turn around and go, well, now we've fixed that. What we thought was actually costing us $5, and this is often the case, what we thought was costing us $5 over the course of years actually costing us $15,000. Yeah. Right? Because what you do is it's $5 a job that you might be messing up on. Right? Yep. And then that $5 a job is $5 on a small job, but on a big job it's $100. Does that make sense?
It adds up real quick, doesn't it? The scale that these things impact you is massive. And I think when you're talking yard cleanup jobs like that, they are often ambiguous, which means what the customer expects versus what you expect. It's hard to make sure that lines up well. And it comes down to, are you quoting based on a finished expectation, or are you quoting based on how much time I spend on the job or what my other expenses are on the job? And
that's a very good point.
If you're trying to estimate it by one of them and the customer's thinking about it from another angle, you can get the expectations very mixed up very quickly.
Correct. So I tell all our customers we quote based on what you want as an outcome. When everyone asks for an hourly rate, I turn around and go, forget it, we're not breaking it down into an hourly rate. What do you want as an outcome? And I will tell you what it will cost to achieve that outcome. I said, if I bill you, for example, at an hourly rate, and this is literally what I say to customers. I said, if it rains that day, I said, and my guys aren't working for 50% of the day, they're ducked under for cover, well, I'm still going to have to bill you for every single one of those hours. Yeah. And they look at me and they sort of go, well, that's not right. I go, case in point, that's not fair to you. Tell me what outcome you want, and I will tell you what it will cost to provide that outcome. Yeah. And that's where that's a very big thing that I learned with quoting, especially with garden tidy-ups. And you can still get caught out. We had one where the customer had expectation, and we still take care of this property today. And the customer's very good with us. It was a deceased estate. I'm not going to go into details, but it was not a nice situation.
They are unfortunately common, those sort of jobs. Deceased estate, and not nice.
Yeah. correct. And there was a lot of tidying up that needed doing. And I went in there and I quoted and I said, okay, cool, well, there was a whole bunch of sticks that had just been placed vertically around. It had a kind of like a hedge around the back, but a non-maintained hedge, if that makes sense.
Yep.
It was basically shrubs that had overgrown and turned into trees. That makes sense?
Lily pillies.
Yeah, some of them were lily pillies. Olive trees, and all sorts of stuff. But there was all this wood stacked up. I said, no worries, man, we can get rid of that. So I ordered a 12 cubic metre skip, and I got a mulcher. I said to the boys, look, it should take you roughly, I'm betting a day and a half to do this job. You know, 2 to 3 people, day and a half. It's a little bit hard because, you know, whatever. Well, the guys started unpacking. They went through and they started gutting everything out, and you know, it started to look really good. The first half of the day went amazingly, right? They cut down what needed cutting down, ripped out what needed ripping out, and everything's going swimmingly. And I'm thinking, bang on, we're going to get this knocked out in a day. It's not even going to take us a day and a half. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I sort of thought day and a half was worst case scenario. Then they started pulling the wood away from the trees, and we thought the timber was maybe, you know, 4 or 5 branches thick, right? Stacked 4 or 5 branches thick. Turned out it was stacked 1.5 meters deep. And so what we thought was a row of plants and trees was a row of dead timber stacked up and just pushing everything was pushing against each other. And so we filled up a 12 cubic metre bin with mulch by mulching up these sticks.
Wow.
Took 3 days.
That was supposed to be 1.5 day job.
1.5 day worst case scenario. 3 days, 3 people.
Yeah.
And the trees that we were originally planning to just prune and shrink down to make it look neat and tidy, because they'd had the timber leaning up against them, they had no trunk strength. So one of my employees was very lucky not to get hurt in this, and this is something that, you know, we again made a process about afterwards, was checking the strength of a tree. So when we pulled all this timber away, the top of the friggin' tree fell off. Like it snapped the trunk, because it was being supported and holding it up, and the trunk was only sort of yay thick. Sorry, I've got a bad shoulder and I can't hold my arm up properly, but it was only about yay thick, but it had a canopy that was about 6.5 meters wide.
Oh, wow. Yes, a lot of weight up high.
A lot of weight up high, and it was about 4 meters tall. The top of the canopy was about 4 meters tall, and the bottom of the canopy was on 6'1", so it probably would have been about 160 centimeters was the bottom of the canopy. But the trunk was not even 30 centimeters thick. Yeah. Right? So they pulled the timber away, and they noticed the top that the tree was going like this. And for a joke, they pushed on it, and the top of the canopy snapped off.
Wow.
And it snapped like this far from the top. Like from the like a foot down from the top of the trunk.
Wow.
No one got hurt, but we ended up cleaning the whole side. Basically, what was meant to be like open up the canopies and uplift, and then bring the top of the canopies down and just shape them into sort of a nice neat prune shape and remove all the debris. Turned into us having to cut down, I think it was 9 trees, because all of them were like that, and even the ones that weren't overloaded had water damage because they had timber stacked up against them and they had rot in the trunk.
The first storm you get and they're all landing on the neighbour's fence.
Well, they wouldn't even made it to the first storm. Like after we pushed the first one over, I said to the boys, I said, grab a strap and just pull on everything, and everything was just snapping. And I said, right, stop. And then they started cutting branches off and reducing the canopy weight and bringing it down safely. So, yeah, you know, that cost a lot of money, but that customer's an ongoing customer now. While the property's still in the for sale stages, because it's taken quite a long time to get there. And we just do a bit of ongoing work there. So it's all worked out in the end. I mean, yeah, cool. I didn't make any money out of the job, but, it was a good learning experience, and it actually saved us from making that mistake 4 times since then.
That's important.
Just from miscalculating how much work was actually required to complete a task, and give the customer that outcome. And then you can price more effectively. And, when you've got 3 guys working on a job for 3 days, and you're, talking about a 12 cubic metre skip, and you've got machinery, and you're using chainsaws, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, you're using a mulcher, and like a decent sized mulcher at that. Something that'll take a 120 millimetre branch, so not a tiny mulcher. I compared my rates to Arborist and asked them what they would charge, and they said, for that we're at $250 an hour per person, for that type of work. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I'm not that expensive because I don't have all that outlay all the time. I hire the equipment. But just realising that, a job that I thought should have been, let's just say for argument's sake, that job I think might have been quoted around the $6,000 mark, including all the green waste removal, the skip, everything. That job realistically should have been 12 to 15 grand. So major mistake, but it's, just the way that life goes, and you learn a lesson that stops you from losing money in the future. One of the big things we brought in to stop customers from getting confused with when we do a yard tidy up, what we're actually going to clean and tidy and what we're not, is the simple one was I spoke to my 2IC and I said, man, how can we stop this from happening again? Because this was another job that had gone wrong, and this is a customer that was misinterpreted the way the quote had gone, and just hadn't aligned. I said, what if I get a marker, like a spray marker, and if we're going to trim a tree, I'll mark the branches that you're to trim. If the whole thing's got to come down, I'll just put a line across the base. He goes, that's brilliant. Right. So that was a process and procedure that took us. We spent an hour trying to work this out. But it made us. It's already made us an additional $20,000 because when my staff go there, they know exactly what they are to touch and what they're not to touch.
And the customer can sign off on saying, well, this is what I'm paying for.
Correct. Because I say to them, I might say to a customer, I go, this is what I think needs trimming. This is what the price will be. If you want anything else trimmed, go and mark it, and I explain to them, mark a branch. If you want a branch to come down, mark the the base of the base of the tree. Like when I say tree, it's like 4 meters tall. Mark the base of it if you want the whole thing to come down. And I can price that up. And I give them a different color marker. So there's no miscommunication that way. And that's made us an extra $15,000-$20,000, and that situation where we had that with a miscommunication with the customer, that only happened in February. It's June. It's made us another $20,000 just through not making mistakes.
And I think that's part of growing your business, right? You've gone from the early stages in COVID to stage now where you're implementing systems in how you do everything. And I think it's worth coming back to the basic systems that you've implemented to work out how you're going to get a customer onto a plan. But when you're talking a more complicated quote, which is a one-off job, having those systems in place to make sure that one-off job doesn't blow out, it's really important.
It is hugely important, and unfortunately all our one-off jobs have kind of stopped happening for the moment because of the economic issues in Melbourne. Like I said, I'll be quite blunt and quite honest. It's since the start of April to now, I think we've cancellation of big planned jobs. I think between the start of April and the end of April, we lost over $30,000 worth of work. Huge impact, and it was sort of, I think there was 9 big jobs. One of them was a returfing job. One of them was, the rest of them were yard tidy ups and stuff like that, and, projects that we had on the board for customers that had pulled the pin on them because of the economic times. But systems, Systems are really important.
I'll ask you more about other systems afterwards, but that one is, I think, really important because that's part of how you have made your business work the way it is getting those customers across the line on a program rather than just the cheapest cut in the neighbourhood.
Correct. So first thing I did was I eliminated my customers who didn't want to spend money. So we have to go back to sort of after that Christmas, New Year's period. Yeah. That was the start of this sort of transform into something that was more stable. So, start of 2024, I started bringing in the no more late payments type thing.
Yep. I've got a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sortscape, at sortscape.com/LawnStars. Job management built specifically for lawn mowing and garden maintenance. If you're still running your business off a paper diary or a basic calendar, Sortscape gives you the stuff they can't. Drag and drop scheduling, route optimization, automatic customer text and email reminders, plus job timers, so you can track time on site and cut the after hours paperwork. Visit sortscape.com/LawnStars. It also keeps your crew organised with customer history, notes and photos right in the app, so you're not relying on memory or pretty sure we did that last time. Visit sortscape.com/LawnStars.
So I had $10,000 owing to me, roughly $10,000. I can't remember if it was plus or minus a few $100 or whatever, but roughly 10 grand owing to me on New Year's Day or Christmas, New Year's Eve, sorry. To 4 months later, and I only had $110 owing to me. All my other customers had paid their invoices within the 7-day payment window that I set up.
So did you fire the customers that were not working out?
So I fired a few. Right, there's probably 10 customers who went out the door, but there was a lot. I probably had 40 customers who were regularly late with payments, and all it came down to was me having a conversation with them and simply saying, "I can't run in arrears." I just said to them, I said, I don't have the financial ability to run in arrears. I said, I have to. This needs to be up to date if you want the service. And then when I had a good employee come along to show me what a good employee could be, then I realised I had other sections of the business I need to work on. That being really understanding what it takes to attract that type of employee, which requires financials, it requires systems, it requires all sorts of stuff. So the next stage after the late payments were sorted out was then really working out what my expenses were. And I had to do this multiple times. But really, up until that point, I want to say I was really winging it on the expenses front, right? This
can be dynamic, though, right? Like you can go, all right, I think and I've done this where I've gone, all right, what's my expenses for the last financial year? And that gives me something to project for the next financial year, break it down to monthly, weekly, hourly, whatever I need to do. But you do a big one-off job, and those expenses are different to when you're doing your regular lawn maintenance. So you can start fine-tuning it for different things as well.
So at that stage, I was just at the point of working out roughly what the business cost and roughly how many hours I was billing out, right?
Yep.
But this is before I had a tracking system where I could actually manage this stuff. At this point, we're still working all off. We roughly start this job at 12 o'clock and we finish it around 12:35. It's a 35-minute job times 2. That's a total of 70 minutes, right?
Yep.
So at that stage, that's where I was at. So I worked.
I love Sortscape for doing this stuff. But what do you?
100%. That's what I use, mate. That's what I use now. And I've been using it for the last just over 12. I think between 12 and 18 months I've been using it, I think.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's become more of a benefit. It was fine when I was working by myself and doing most of the work by myself, but once you get full-time employees or employees doing upwards of sort of 15 hours a week, you really need to have this stuff sorted out.
So I just published an interview with Sortscape this morning.
I saw that.
And
I haven't watched it yet.
I did that because it's the end of the financial year. It's a good time to just remind people that they want to do improvements in their business, and this is a really good piece of software that helps them to do it. So I did an interview with the 2 people that are really important there. So CEO of the business and Kyla McDonald, their training partner.
Yep.
So we've got multiple aspects that delve into that, but it sounds to me like what you're looking at with Sortscape is more looking at the reporting that it does, which we didn't really cover. So what does that look like when you pull reports?
So there's a lot. Can we delve into that? Because I actually want to talk about Sortscape as its own thing. Because there's a lot in Sortscape that I'd like to talk about. But so I started working out the principle, and this is talking about going through the stages of the business, right? I was kind of winging my expenses for the first 2 years, going, it costs roughly this much, and just looking at like bank account statements and this, that, the other, and individually working out expenses through Xero, and doing all that sort of stuff. So that's another thing I'll touch on. I learned very early on, before I even started a business, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was anything that has serious financial or legal ramifications, offload as much of the liability as possible. And so the first two things I was told to get was get a damn good accountant and get a damn good bookkeeper. Right? And I sort of didn't really understand why. But I learned why really quickly, because I actually made an error in my tax the first year that I did stuff and paid additional tax I didn't have to. But it happens, big whoop. But yeah, so
it does. It hurts, but it happens.
It happens. So anyway, bookkeeper and accountant I would consider very important, and a system to invoice, because that at least allows you. So I use Xero. To do my invoicing and my accounting stuff, and that took me from doing an Excel spreadsheet where I was typing up my invoices on an Excel spreadsheet, and I did this I think 6 months in. I've started using Xero. Originally I was using an Excel spreadsheet, and I knew how to use Excel okay. My girlfriend is an absolute wizard at it. What she can do with spreadsheets, honestly, I ain't know it could be done. So I started using Excel, and then moved on to Xero, and then Xero allowed me to unitize everything and put down a cost as a unit, and so then I had to work out what a unit was. And so around the start of 2024 I had to work out what a unit was, mid 2024 I had to work out what a unit actually was, as in a unit of labor. What it actually was, and how I was going to set up a pricing structure, because I always had this thing, my minimum cost, I think when I first started, my minimum cost was $44, right? And I allowed my minimum cost to be a variance of anything between 10 and 20 minutes. I didn't really have a hard limit. I had an inaccurate and inconsistent pricing, right? And so 2024 I set up a unit, and I decided, it's really easy, let's use let's make an hour 10 units, so that makes it six minutes, right? And then I said, okay, you get 3 units for free, or the minimum price is 3 units, which meant it was 18 minutes. Anything that I could complete in under 18 minutes became $55. So I went from 44 to 55. That made a surprising amount of difference, because at the time I didn't realize how many customers I had that I was just doing a really small amount of work on. And so most of those customers went from like 44 to 55, right? Including GST. I always work my figures out including GST, because tax I use tax is a cost to me. So that's just how I've calculated my figures. So I went, okay, so we've gone from 44 to 55. Then I started going, okay, now we're going to charge 1 unit above what I think a job will take. Right? So if I think a job's going to take 30 minutes, that's 5 units. Right? You get your first 3 units are going to be $55, and then I can't remember what the pricing was for each unit after that, but it was like a degrading price scale, right? Where the more units you had, the lower the cost was. So that way you're making your money on your small, short jobs that take half an hour versus your full hour jobs, just as an example.
So once you get to charging out a full hour of labour, you're at a closer margin and something that you can easily work around. Whereas on your short jobs, you got to have a higher margin because you've got your unbillable time in between those jobs.
Correct. I hadn't yet calculated how much billable and unbillable time I had yet, though. I just sort of worked out this degrading unit price thing.
Yeah.
And so I implemented that, and my average customer at the time in 2024 went from about, I think it was about $74 per customer on average to about $90.
That's a 20% improvement.
Yeah, pretty significant improvement. And that happened in a 6 month. That happened sort of mid 2024 to the end of 2024. I implemented that.
Yeah.
So that's the first stage of the pricing system. And then I started to really hone in on what my 3 offers were. And it took me a while to work that out. I had to work out what my customers needed. And what I basically worked out was I had 3 customers. I had rental properties, homeowners, and people who just wanted the best of the best. Now, admittedly, the people who want the best of the best seem to be disappearing at the moment, and it may just be my location. So my bread and butter is homeowners, and I now aim for house-proud homeowners, so not just someone who owns a home and just, I don't really care. No, I want the customers who are house-proud, and rental properties.
Yep.
So I started building up the programs, adjusting the programs, and that took me to sort of, I want to say before I really got it locked down as to exactly what needed to be done, it was probably, that process sort of started in October 2024. So I'd already worked on the pricing project, got that sorted. And then October 2024 till March 2025, I really knuckled down. I always had my programs, but they were kind of a little bit, they were good, but they needed improvement. I had to work out what each service entailed. And so we have 3 tiers of service, and we call them good, great, or amazing. Right? So you either want a good service, you want a great service, or you want amazing. It's simple. I work out all the back end stuff, but for the customer, I just need to know: do you want it to look good? Do you want it to look great? Do you want it to look amazing? So the good program is on for rental properties.
I've made the mistake of telling people to label that worst customer, best customer, and the customer that wants everything.
Yeah.
And somebody actually went and quoted on that basis and said, "Do you want to be my worst customer?"
Yeah, look, that's honestly, I could probably swing that and make that work. If I wanted to.
As a joke, you
got to have the right approach to do it, but you can work with that. Yeah. But I just sort of, I then worked out what each customer needed. Now, rental tenant only needs the good program. So the good program I worked out needed less stuff than I was putting in it originally. I was giving away too much.
Yep.
Right? And then the great program, I wasn't putting enough in, so I increased it. And then the amazing program was actually bang on exactly what it needed to be. I think I changed 2 things in it, and that was it.
Did you say you're the only customer in the amazing program?
At the moment, yeah. I used to have about 4 customers in the amazing program, but they sold their houses. Which was really painful when that happened, to be honest.
They're the ones that want 45 services a year.
Correct, and they wanted everything built. They wanted gardening done. And when I say gardening, I mean hey, I don't want to ever pull a weed out of my garden. I don't.
Yeah, they want new mulch in the garden beds every spring.
Yeah, I want it tidied. I want it kept neat and tidy. I want my fertilizer treatments and all that for my garden, as well as everything that you do for the lawn and stuff like that. So I worked out my 3 tiers of service. And then what I had to do was then work on, after I had worked out that unitized pricing structure, we're now in March 2025. So we're not that long ago, right? We're only talking, 15 months
15
ago?
months.
Yep. Yeah. I then went, right, I've had a gut full of low-paying customers who are constantly whinging. And I said, okay, things have changed. This is the new price for your service. And I specifically focused, and I think this is what made me feel comfortable to do this price rise. I specifically focused on my lowest and least profitable customers first. So if I lost them, it didn't hurt me too much.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I had probably about 115 customers, so I'd lost about 10 customers who were really bad payers, right?
Yep.
Which I'd sort of gotten rid of the year prior after the whole $10,000 owing to me, and now I'm in a lot of trouble kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I had about 115 customers, and I had grown and had customers drop off in this period, but I'd sat around 115. And at the start of 2025, my casual employee who still works for me today just said, I can't keep doing what we're doing. Like, my body's copping it. You know, we were working 40 plus degree days. Yep. I think one day I drank 8 litres of water and 3 litres of hydrolyte mix, like a electrolyte mix.
It's a lot.
Because we wear long sleeve shirts when we work, long pants, boots, full head, full hat protection, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're sweating like crazy. And he said, I can't do this anymore. And I said, well, man, I can't service all these customers by myself. And then I went, stuff it. And I just went, okay, our minimum cost is going. And I went from a minimum cost of $55 to a minimum cost of $70.
I want to give you a high five for that. That's smooth moves.
Yeah, and it was, I'll be pretty honest, it sounds like a small amount of money now when I talk about it, but it was very daunting at the prospect of losing customers that I had spent a long time building up.
Yeah.
So I lost in that process, forcibly moved on by a price rise, if you want to label it like that. These were customers I didn't really want anymore.
Yeah.
And then I dropped off about 30 customers. Right?
So you chose to drop them, or that's what you lost from doing that?
That's what I lost from the price rise. From moving up. And then I went, okay, now let's focus on the customers who I'm actually profitable on, and let's work out how much profit I should be making. Because I'd already learned how much it costs to employ a good person at this point, right? And I wanted to set the business up to hire people. Yeah. And so I went, okay, I need to go and recalculate my expenses and work out my billable hours. Enter Sortscape. So I had to work out how many billable hours I had, which Sortscape's analytics are fantastic for that. It can tell you how many minutes a job is taking versus what you've quoted, and how profitable the job is versus how again compares it to other jobs and all sorts of stuff. And then so around March last year, I started moving my customers who weren't already on it, because I'd started bringing in around when I worked out the pricing in 2024, I started moving customers across to monthly billing from a per visit billing, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it's a fixed price all year round. And then once I fine-tuned the good, great, and amazing program, then I had to reset the pricing for them, and that then meant that I had that consistent work year round, and that was all sort of, the last bit of that was done around March last year.
Yeah.
And that's when I started saying to people, you know, previously it was just kind of like a loose agreement that we would be there every fortnight and then every 3 weeks, and then when I changed it to every fortnight year round and just said to them, in the contract it's got, this is another thing, contracts are a big thing too. Make sure your customers are on an actual contract, not a verbal. You create a quote that is written, and you have a paper trail of them accepting it.
And that means they've signed the contract to say they agree to pay that.
They've either signed it or they've opened the link and clicked accept is the bare minimum that I will accept. Right? Yep. To me, that is a contract. And I got legal advice. That was a contract. If they accepted it, they had provided, so that the terms and conditions was, in writing, they had provided me their contact points. Yep. Right? this is coming from a lawyer that I spoke to about this.
Yeah.
If they've provided you those contact points and then you've sent a contract to them and they've accepted that contract via that contact point, the liability is then on them. They've provided that, you're not responsible for it anymore. They can't turn around and say to me, I never got that contract. I never agreed to it. You provided the contact information, and I utilised the contact information you provided to give you a contract, and then that contract's been accepted via that direct link.
You've got a paper trail.
I've got a paper trail. So I started end of 2024, moved over, we started moving people, all new customers then went on to monthly billing. 2025, around March, I got Sortscape, and then I was able to fine-tune my cost process. And then I was able to go from working out exactly how many hours I was able to bill per week for me, and that worked out to be about 36 billable hours per week on average in 4 days.
For you. Yeah.
Right? So I was on average, I was working 10 and a half, 11 hours a day on tools. And out of that, about 9 hours was billable.
Yep.
So with the odd Friday thrown in here and there to work around certain schedules that you had to, in regards to doing certain jobs, you just had to do them on a Friday because it was a tidy up for a regular customer, but they needed it done on this date. So that was me working solo. I got Sortscape in, I did the analytics, and then I worked out what my costs, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. I worked out what my costs were per billable hours. And I think if I told people what it cost me to employ one person, assuming one employee, I don't know how many employees you've got, Gaz, but I'll take you per billable hour, right? I told you I did 36, right? Now, you can't expect that out of an employee. That's number one, right? You're not going to get it. Unless you're paying them for like 40, 42, 43 hours a week. You just won't get that 35, 36. But you've been in business a long time. What would you think per billable hour? What would you think it'd cost to run an employee?
So this changes based on the size of the jobs that you do. So
let's say for residential work where you can't use a ride-on.
Yeah, so you're talking like the size jobs you're doing.
Yeah, the size jobs I'm doing. But let's just say per billable hour, like you've got I based it off a 32-hour work week for my 32 billable hours per week.
And are they permanent staff, so they're on about $30 to $35 an hour?
Keep going.
40?
So my full-timers start at 38. So I have a senior gardener and a 2IC. My senior gardener is on 38, but he's expected to run a team of up to 3 junior gardeners when need be, and then my 2IC is on 45.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so with those numbers in mind, your cost for the employee per billable hour is going to be somewhere around 75 to 85.
Correct. But then you've got all your consumables and all this sort of stuff. And bear in mind that our packages include fertilizers. It includes fertilizer, weed spraying, aeration, amendments, soils testing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so those costs are on top of the employee.
On top of the employee.
Yeah.
It worked out to run one employee at $40 an hour as a wage, because that's what I used to work this out, was $108 an hour plus GST per billable hour.
Cost.
So if I'm charging $120 plus GST per billable hour, I have $12
for every hour that employee works,
right?
Yep.
So that brings in problem number one. Your profit margin is far too slim. You're basically at 10% net profit, right?
Yep.
Best case scenario, right? So you've got to remember this all, which in real world, you've got to factor in breakages, equipment issues, all that sort of stuff that you can't see and
yeah. When you're talking a finely tuned machine like Microsoft or Apple, 10% profit margin is decent.
That's
but when you're talking a small business like you or I,
Yep.
A 10% profit margin can disappear because you sneeze, or
Correct.
you got bad weather, to a bushfire season or flood season or whatever it is. Oh, no money.
So this was March last year. I actually worked this out. I spent about 4 hours. I'm pretty good, capable with mathematics. Just lucky that way. My brain works really well with maths. English language, forget it. Terrible. I was one of those kids who, in high school, when I had to when I had to come up with a conclusion for an essay, I used to write, "In conclusion, this is this." I flunked. I think I technically flunked English in year 12. But anyway,
you sound like me. Like, why write 5 pages when you can write 5 sentences?
Yeah. I consider that a waste and inefficient. So I had a cost of $108 an hour plus GST, and I was charging about $120 an hour plus GST. I think it was just over that. It might have been $125 plus GST to $130. I can't remember exactly what it was.
What I want to say there is, based on the type of jobs that you do, that goal should change. So
Correct.
If you're talking 400 to 500 square metre properties, and that's the bulk of the jobs that you're doing, so you're going, all right, we're doing, like, one employee's doing, what do you say, 5 to 8 jobs in a day?
If they were, say, 500 square metre, say you had 300 square metres of grass to cut, I'd expect one employee to do 8 a day.
8 a day, yeah, right. So that's reasonable, right? Yep. That's not expecting too much from an employee. That's just saying that's a reasonable expectation.
Correct.
If you have one employee on one job all day, then that changes that drastically, because
Absolutely
you don't have unbillable time.
Absolutely it does. And this is where we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I'll deflect on that one more second. If we're talking a job that takes 18 minutes to do, and you were originally quoting, what do you say, $41?
$44 including GST
44?
was originally what I was.
And then you bumped it up to 55, right? And then you've gone, actually, we're going to hit 70 plus GST for those jobs now.
Yeah, it was like 70 to 75, went up to.
What we're looking at there is going, that makes a lot of sense, that those small jobs, you need to hit that higher price point to justify the amount of time they're on the job versus the amount of time it takes them to get to the next job versus the amount of time it takes to talk to the customer, all the different things that come into that 18-minute job. And
correct. That's where Sortscape really comes into its own.
So if you're talking about this, 18 minutes for $75 means that you're realistically working off about $300 an hour. Is that?
Yeah, something like that.
But when your employee is doing a job that takes an hour, and you're roughly aiming for $120 an hour, that 1 hour at $120 might not seem like it's in the same ballpark.
It's not. It may not seem it, but what you don't realise is you have to work out on, and the way I worked it out was on averages.
Yeah.
On average, how often did it take me to set up and pack up the ute, right?
Yep.
For each job. On average, how much time do I have to spend talking to a customer before and after a job, right?
Yep.
Some customers, I have a customer that I've had for 4 years I've never met, and they've never met me, and they've never met my employees. Not once, right?
Yep.
And it is one of the strangest relationships I've ever had in my life, because one day I will meet this person and have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
And they've probably spent $140,000 with us.
Yeah.
Right. So not a small customer.
They're paying for peace of mind, not for your face.
They don't care what I look like. They care about the result.
Yeah.
That was sort of that whole thing around I quote based on an outcome, right?
Yeah.
And so I also worked out that I had to work out the average amount of minutes I would spend at a job, average amount of minutes that I would spend packing up, setting up, talking to the customer. So an 18-minute job of mowing, realistically, is probably more like half an hour. Plus your travel time, which if you've got a tight run, and most people don't, to be completely honest, a tight run is 5 minutes between each job in the car.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of people have 10, 15, 20 minutes, between jobs. And you need
particularly if you're dealing with inner city traffic.
Correct. And so then I was always pretty good at keeping our rounds fairly tight. We always worked off servicing one suburb or one area a day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Every fortnight. Or every round, if that makes sense. I never did I would have say for example, in my area, if I was doing Greensborough, I would do Greensborough and Yallambee, and that back in the day that used to be pretty much it. Now it's a bit different because there's two guys out all the time and we can fit more in. But those suburbs are next to each other.
Yeah.
So you have to drive. You drive one suburb, the next suburb across is Yallambee. So I used to put those runs together. I didn't care what the customer wanted. If a customer said, "Oh, I've got a job in Eltham, but it has to be done on this day," I'd say to them, "Well, we can only do it on this day, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But you'll have to find somebody else." And being prepared to be rejected for that sort of stuff is a reality of the process, and being prepared to be rejected because of your price is a reality. So
that's on that goes.
As we were talking before, that $120 an hour. Then I always concentrated on efficiency with my business. So I made the movement from petrol to electric very early on, before the equipment was probably up to what it needed to be for commercial electric. If I'm honest, I was using all the Ego before they had the select cutter. They had a steel deck thing, and I tortured that thing. There's a photo that's probably still on LMCA. Baz from Ego used to show it to everyone and be like, "This guy put this thing through a meter, the grass was 1.20 meters tall." And I just opened up the rear flap and just sent it, and was like, "Oh well, is what it is." But I converted to electric equipment because it was cheaper to run electric equipment over petrol. And there's this massive argument about it, and I've heard it a million times. I have done the cost per litre of petrol versus how long I get out of my batteries versus the amount of times that petrol equipment lets you down. Now, some guys will say, a really good example is, HRU 216 never breaks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How many HRU 216 owners do you know who have blown a gearbox up?
I've got a spare one sitting in the shed. Does somebody want to buy it? Maybe I should do a giveaway with it.
Yeah.
Because I don't use them anymore.
Yeah. So everyone goes, unbeatable, complete reliability. But the only reliability they're looking at is the motor. They're not looking at the whole system as a complete. Now, HRU 216 is about $2,300 down here for the Buffalo Pro or whatever the top spec is.
Yep.
And so I went, well, the Greenworks, the Ego, at the time I was using Ego equipment, the Ego is $1,800, so it's $500 cheaper, and it comes with two 10 amp hour batteries and chargers and all the kit and caboodle.
Yep.
And then I used the redemptions that Ego used to run. I used to specifically buy my tools when Ego would do their redemptions, and I think at one point I had over 40 Ego batteries. Everything from 12 amp hour to 2.5s. I never had a 2. That's the only battery I never got from Ego. I never got a 2 amp hour battery. I never had 2.5s, 5s, 7.5s, 10s, and 12s. But by moving to electric, I saved myself a fair bit of money compared to my competition because I had the price of fuel and the price of servicing. When I worked out how much it actually costs to service a mower properly, because you need it to be reliable, which means every 40 hours or so, you've got to change the oil on it if it's a 4-stroke. Every 15 to 20 hours, you have to blow out the air filter, and every 40 to 50 hours when you do the oil, you need to replace the air filter, right?
Yep.
And spark plug.
Yep.
So if you put all those costs together and you're doing things properly, because I am very big on doing things properly. I don't like skipping on stuff. The cost per year of owning a HRU 216, I think, was somewhere up around $250 to $300 in maintenance outside of doing blades. Right. So again, this is doing things properly. I'm not saying that you have to do it, and everyone will argue that you don't need to do it, and that's fine. But if you want it to be a trouble-free experience, and you need everything to work, you're looking at spending $250 to $300 a year on filters and oil and spark plugs and miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know the only maintenance I do on an electric mower?
Blade sharpening?
Blades. I don't even sharpen blades anymore. My blades do 40 hours and they go in the bin.
I like you. I love it. I hate sharpening blades. So there is, like, if you're talking a Honda HRU with the swing back blades, there's zero point in sharpening them. I'm going to get hate mail for this. But when you're talking a bar blade like you run on the Select Cut, you go, or are you running the Select Cut or the Select Cut
at
XP?
that time I was running at that time I think I was running Select Cut and the Select Cut XP. I've moved on to Greenworks now, but even with the bar blade, the Ego blades are very soft, so they have to be sharpened. I actually found it really annoyed me. They had to be sharpened weekly to give you a decent cut finish.
Yeah, okay.
They were quite
the Greenworks?
Greenworks, no, mate. They do 40 hours and they go in the bin. So this is another thing when it comes to efficiency. Everyone goes, it takes 5 minutes to sharpen a blade. It might. How many people balance their blades? No one balances it. The thing vibrates like crazy and you end up breaking a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't need a break. You wear out bearings early and all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
So when we're talking about working out efficiency versus this is all coming down to this billable hour thing that I was going back to earlier, because all this maintenance has to be included in that billable hour, right?
Yep.
So I went, okay, it's actually cheaper for me to put a decent blade on there that will last and do 40 hours and then launch that into the bin and just throw a new blade on it rather than, because I have to pay an employee, remember, to do this. I'm not going to be doing this myself. The idea of this is that employees run the business. I then had to calculate the cost difference between sharpening blades 2 to 3 times, because you can only get 2 to 3 sharpens out of them, right? And then they're toast. And usually the distance, the time between the sharpening shortens as the blade wears. You have to sharpen.
Metal gets softer because it's been heated up from the grinder as you sharpen it.
Correct. And it's been heated up just from workload and stuff like that. Like you end up, the metal goes soft.
Yeah.
So you end up with a soft blade. Now you can counteract that, and I used to do it because I was a sheet metal fabricator. I knew how to counteract it. And that is you dunk it, you quench it, you dunk it in water when it's hot. But you got to get the blade really hot for that process to work.
How much more time and you're paying for that?
Correct. So the cost analysis on a blade was, for a 22-inch bar blade, I think I was paying about $50.
Yep.
All right. And on the Greenworks, because I've switched to Greenworks last year, and I can talk about that process too, but it was an efficiency standpoint again. The Greenworks bar blade is about $50, argument's sake.
Yep.
It takes me, if I get a team member to sharpen and balance a blade, it's roughly 20 minutes to sharpen and balance, excluding the time taken to remove and replace the blade. Yeah. Right? Everyone says, that seems like a really long time. Right? Well, if you want to sharpen a blade properly, you can't rush it. It needs to be done properly. Right?
Yeah. You don't want to get it glowing red. You've got to do it slowly. You've got to do it thoroughly.
Correct. It's got to be done slowly. It's got to be done consistently. You've got to make sure that the edge is being cut consistent from one side to the other, and you're not accidentally twisting the blade as it goes through. Right?
And then you've got to balance it once you've done it.
Then you got to balance it. And you're assuming all this because you've got to work out your time. And I timed it, and it worked out to be about 20 minutes per blade to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Sounds about right.
Yep. So how much time do you spend doing all that when you just replace the blade? 0.
It's a 5-minute job to replace the blade.
Yeah, but you got to remember, we're not counting the time to fit and remove. We're only counting the time to actually sharpen and balance the blade.
So
that 20 minutes. Sorry?
Yeah, so I don't sharpen blades either. And I'm talking even with ride-ons. I don't sharpen the blades. I run them to about 120 hours and then throw them in the bin with a ride-on.
Yeah.
But in that sense, when I talk to people that are in Brisbane, that's a completely different game. They cannot get away with running 120 hours on a ride-on without sharpening their blades.
Yeah, so if I was in Brisbane, because the grass is a lot thicker up there, I'd probably be doing
they're doing cooch
60 hours and 40 to 60 hours, and it goes in the bin.
So they're doing Queensland cooch, and the little bit of cooch that I do cut around here, I know full well if you don't have a nice sharp blade and you don't catch the grass, it looks terrible. So, for those reasons, Queenslanders are right about the way they do things. It's the only way it works for them.
Yeah. I always catch as well. That's another thing. So my whole business, I went through a period where I mulched, and I went for the more efficient, time-wise thing of not catching and just mulching. And I lost the higher-end clientele really didn't like it, and they were pretty open about it, and so I reverted back. So I've tried a lot of things that have failed, basically.
Yes, I think mulching versus catching is a debate we can get stuck in the weeds on, but ultimately it comes down to what your client's happy with and what they want to pay for, and what you're charging, and whether it makes sense for both people to go, yeah, we agree this is what works. And for your clients, you're going to get the type of clients you want. You want them fitting into your packages. You want them at a high end.
Correct.
You don't want the rubbish ones.
No, and that means you need to standardise stuff. So so we catch all our grass. So anyway, long story short was we went from spending about 25 minutes to do a set of blades on a mower to 5 minutes total time. So 20 minutes to sharpen was complete, and balance was completely removed.
Yeah, now, but three times for each set of blades too. So you're pulling them off at 15, 20 hours and then doing it again, and then maybe a third time you're putting them in the bin maybe.
Yeah, correct. After the third time, they're garbage, right? So you're going to be replacing them anyway, and so you got to factor in, you got to do your mathematics and work out your compound cost of all this stuff. And so that's what I did, and I did that with absolutely everything. Every single item I could do it with, I did it with. So I went and sorted all that out, and then I had to work out, I was always very focused on efficiency, and so I always wanted to have a 30-inch mower. But no one did a decent 30-inch electric mower. And that drove me nuts. And then Greenworks released theirs, and everyone's like, oh man, this thing is heavy and blah, blah, blah. And so I got turned off it.
Yeah.
That decision of getting turned off because people complained about the weight, that cost me, as a solo operator, cost me about $40,000 a year. Because when I did my times on it, the 30-inch was 30% more efficient. Yeah.
Now, just a little rabbit hole here, because we know BJ, and he needs to be given an absolute carrot up the butt when it comes to this stuff. He's running a 32-inch machine that you stand on.
Yes.
And there is a place for that. Yep. But when it comes to the work you're doing, the 30-inch walk behind versus a 32-inch stand-on, I think it's a no-brainer, but you tell me from your point of view, the 32-inch stand-on would not suit your customers.
No, it wouldn't. The big downside is because we run electric equipment, the weight is a big problem.
You just said the 30-inch machine is heavy, though.
Yeah, 30 inch is 100 kilos, but the 32-inch stand-on is nearly 400 kilos.
Plus your weight.
Plus my fat ass. So, we're up well over half a ton at that point on a 32-inch wheelbase, which...
Yeah. And they're a pneumatic tyre, so it spreads the weight a little bit, but yeah,
we tried it, and we tried it for half a day, and it didn't work, and I really appreciated Gaz coming out and giving us a shot with that. Gary from Greenworks came out and we tried it.
Yep. Yeah.
But it just didn't suit our needs. Now, if you're doing a different type of work, that machine would absolutely work. But for what we're doing, the 30-inch does 90% of our work, 90 to 95% of the work. The only time we don't use it is when we can't get it through a doorway or a gate. If we have a particularly narrow gate, then we don't use it. Otherwise, it does everything, even small yards, because it's no slower than the 22. Even on a small yard where manoeuvrability is a pain in the ass and, blah, 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 this, that, the other, it's no slower than a 22.
Yep. So it makes sense to have the 30-inch there rather than the 22.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about having the extra mower. I guess you'd probably carry a 22 for those places where you've got to get a mower up and down the steps or something like that.
Yeah, so we have the 22 at the front of the ute. So we work out of a ute. We don't work out of a trailer. This is another efficiency point.
Yeah. Surprised you haven't gone to a van for that reason.
I didn't want to go with a van because I didn't like the idea of not being able to hose it out.
You could hose it out. Don't tell anyone. No.
Remember I told you before we started, my dad was a GM very high up in automotive. I know how many people put through warranty claims for stuff like that, and it gets knocked back. And I just didn't want to deal with it.
So I did a lot of research on this, and then I went and bought a Renault Traffic. Yeah. And there's two issues that come up. One is that I think I'll get in trouble for saying this, but Ford vans rust the floors out quicker than any other van.
They're known for that.
From that sort of issue, right? Green waste sitting there or getting washed out or whatever it might be. They rust the floor out, and you got to chuck them out and bin them and get a new one very frequently because of that. Ford. Fix it, Ford. Your transits need fixing. The other issue that comes up, like all of them are going to do it. It's not just like Ford does it. All of them are going to rust the floor out eventually. But the other issue that comes up is you're keeping fuel in the back of the van and you're keeping green waste in the back of the van, and there's no, with most vans anyway, there is no seal. There is a word for that, but a proper air seal, so that you don't get those fumes in the front with the driver and passenger. And so there's one or two vans where they've been, I think, hermetically sealed is what they say, so it can actually be used like a food storage van or something like that, refrigerated in the back, but most vans are not hermetically sealed.
No. And so that was one of the reasons why I didn't go with the van. And so I went with the ute, but my intention with the ute was always to build a box on the back designed for mowing. I haven't gotten there yet. I have drawn up multiple variations of what I want, and essentially it's an 8x5 trailer on the back of a ute.
Have a look at Martin Safidi.
I've seen a few that have done really good ones. It's surprisingly easy to do. It's just like, for me at the moment, it's a cost thing, and unfortunately the economics don't work at the moment. Otherwise, it'd already be done.
Fair enough.
But what was I going to say? We upgraded to the 30-inch, and this is where. If we go back to the sort of whole debate about how to make sure you're making money and stuff like that, like you obviously would have seen in our chat group that I mentioned my hourly rate and a few people's jaws kind of dropped.
Yep.
And I think a few people probably took that a bit of an unhappy... They were a bit unhappy to hear what I was charging. I'll put it to you that way.
Everyone's got their own thing in their head about what is fair. And if your fare doesn't line up with their fare... oh well.
that's just life, right?
But you've calculated it. You've said this is what I need to be working on.
If you're out there tackling strata sites, commercial grounds, retirement villages, or those tough summer acres, you know a full commercial mower makes all the difference. That's why more commercial contractors are switching to Right Standers, the original stand-on mower, available in Australia through Cox dealers nationwide. Built tough for our conditions, the legendary AeroCore deck delivers a flawless, even cut every time. Quick manoeuvrability in tight spots, compact design for easier trailer loading, Kawasaki or Briggs engines, hydro gear drives, and a serious commercial durability. Stand instead of sit for less fatigue, better visibility, quicker jobs, and more profit in the bank. From the Standard B for great value to the X or ZK for next level performance, everyone is raving about the upgrade. Head to rightmowers.australia.com.au or your local dealer today. Be sure to mention Aussie Lawn Stars. Right Mowers get the job done faster, cleaner and easier. Your back and your business will thank you.
This is what I need to be working on. And so I worked out that the three tiers of our plans all have different costs per hour, right? And I basically worked out that with the 30-inch, here's the thing, 30-inch is 30% more productive, right? So if you're charging 120 an hour plus GST and you're using a 22 or a 21 or a 20 or a 19, you're more expensive than I probably am using my 30 and with my packages included, right? So my base package is around 150 an hour plus GST, right? But you got to remember we're including fertilizer and all that, and weed spray and all sorts of stuff.
So you got product costs in.
We've got product costs, we've got staff costs, we've got equipment costs, we've got maintenance costs. Maintenance is the big one that catches a lot of people out when you're talking about blade maintenance. Make sure things are work properly. We don't have a single piece of equipment downstairs that doesn't work except for the pressure washer. We have a pressure washer that I bought and has been a pain in the ass since day one, and it's gone back for warranty 3 times, and now it's out of warranty and they won't fix it, and I'm trying to get my money back on it because it's an outstanding issue from when it was in warranty.
Is it a petrol one or battery?
Petrol. That's a petrol one, so it's like a 300cc petrol washer that flows like 19 litres per minute. It's not. Do you want
to buy a pressure washer off me? I've got a one I bought off a commercial pressure washing guy. It's got just a 13 horsepower Honda engine on it, so it kicks.
Yeah.
And I don't use it.
This is 18 horsepower. So
yeah.
I think it's 18, 15 or 18, or whatever it is. But anyway, it's had problems since day one. It's been back for 3 warranty claims. This thing had a 12-month warranty, and it's like 3 years old, and I've been arguing with them to refund me my money because it's about $3,500 for the whole period because it has been a non-stop pain in the ass. So other than that, we don't have any equipment that doesn't work. Every single piece of equipment we have works. My guys have an hour of maintenance time available to them each week that they are expected to perform if it's required.
Yep.
So
fair enough.
Hedges are scrubbed every week and cleaned every week. There is never a build-up of gum. After every job, they're expected to clean hedges if they've used them on anything oily. If you've used it to trim something for 2 seconds, then you can get away with just brushing it off or blowing it off or whatever. But usually they will be cleaning it properly.
If you use it when there's still dew on the leaf, then it self-cleans.
We would, if it gets wet, if there's any moisture, we clean them afterwards, and a quick clean can be something as simple as using Still Super Clean and just giving it a spray. But
it's about making sure it's got lubricant on it rather than rust.
Correct. But every week they use a citrus cleaner to clean it, scrub the blades, and then
get the sap off them.
Yep, lube it up and away it goes type thing. But every single piece of equipment we have works.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? So the guys have time for maintenance time. That's all booked into that hour. So we start at 150 an hour plus GST, right?
Yeah.
But our costs realistically for that program are around, for one person, it's around $118, $119 plus GST. So profit margin is not as big as you think it is. It's just the realistic cost of things. And we're about to have price hikes, So as far as like fertilizer about to go through the roof because of the global situation, I've already been warned by my suppliers. We go through. So we also mix our own fertilizers to a degree. There are some that are completely bespoke, and then there are others that are sort of we will mix multiple fertilizers together to get the outcome that we want, based on the season. We're talking about granules here. Liquids, you can just make up the mixes you need to because you have products for each individual situation.
Yeah.
But for our granulars, we'll actually adjust them for the season and what we need.
Yep.
Most people don't focus on root development in spring. I really focus on root development in spring, and it sets you up for a really good summer. So lots of organics built in, a lot of phosphorus and stuff like that, and make sure everything's nice and healthy. Awesome.
But we're going to need it for this coming summer too. It's probably going to be a dry one. So
it's probably going to be a dry one, yeah. And on that, a quick tip for anyone who is worried about work dropping off over the summer: do yourself a favour, go and make sure every single customer you've got has a $20 tap timer and a arc sprinkler, oscillating sprinkler. Sorry. And when you go and mow their lawn, throw the sprinkler on for 45 minutes. Every visit in the middle of summer. You'll have green grass year round, and most customers will actually appreciate it if you do it for them.
Yep.
Right.
But if you've got a customer on a plan, and by plan we mean not just mowing 26 times a year, we mean that you're doing treatment for grubs, treatment for weeds, and fertilizers. There may be a couple of other things you could cover there, but that's your basics that you're going to have in a plan, right? So those three things are going to make sure that grass stays a lawn, weed-free, which means it's going to resist the heat better. It's going to hold the moisture in better. It's going to have better quality soil.
Correct. That's
which
the big
means
thing.
It's going to, like, it's, you said it's going to stay green all year round. What people don't understand is that what actually means is that it's resistant to issues. It's resistant to disease. It's resistant to drought. It's resistant to flooding. It handles everything better when you have them on a plan so that they're getting what they need rather than trying to get it fend for it themselves.
You can look at a customer's lawn. So we have one customer who's on a roundabout, and we use her in the local area. We say to everyone, have a look at this house because everyone drives past this block.
Yep.
I said, see if you can pick which house that we do over the 4 houses on the roundabout, and one of the guys is a greenskeeper, which I absolutely love this bit. He's a greenskeeper, or a retired greenskeeper.
Yeah.
And I say, look at the 4 houses on the roundabout, see if you can pick which is ours, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I say, and I won't tell anyone whose it isn't. Everyone always picks the greenskeepers one because it doesn't look quite as good as our customers. And so they think, they're like, oh, well, it's probably not the very best one, right? But it looks pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
It's not. The greenskeeper one day came over with a smoke hanging out of his mouth and said, what the hell do you do to this lawn to keep it so green year round? She doesn't even water it. And I said, it's a soil test. I said, we do soil testing. He's like, I figured it must have been something like that. He's like, he was just very surprised that anyone offered that as part of a service.
Yeah.
But we use it as a selling point. But you can look at the others. So there's 2 houses that are well maintained on that roundabout, and then 2 houses that are just whatever. And the 2 houses are, one's maintained by another. That's the other thing. So the reason we say that, 3 out of the 4 houses on the roundabout are maintained by a professional, right? So you've got the greenskeeper, you've got us, and then you've got one of our competitors who takes care of it. Takes care of one of the other ones.
Okay.
And
you're still calling him a professional. You're not calling him a cowboy.
I'm not calling him a cowboy because, like, he's a professional. His standards just aren't where ours are. He does his own thing. He doesn't dethatch lawns. He doesn't do any of that stuff like we do. And so, that lawn looks okay from a glance. But the way the cycle goes, whenever there's stress, is the house that is maintained by the homeowner looks like rubbish most of the year round.
Yeah.
The house that's maintained by our competitor, it looks the 3rd best. The house that's maintained by the greenskeeper is always in competition with our program. The only reason I say he's in competition with it is because in summer he's got irrigation, our customer doesn't.
Yeah.
So sometimes in summer, I will admit that lawn looks better, and it purely comes down to the amount of water it gets.
Yeah.
He's got what are they called, the nozzles? Because I calibrated his system with him last year.
Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about. Geared nozzles.
Or something?
They're a geared nozzle, I believe. So that they,
correct. Hunter PGJs or whatever they're called.
They get very precise and accurate watering on the area they're covering.
Yeah, there's those. Not the MP rotators. The PGJs or PJGs they're called. But they have different nozzle sizes, and we calibrated it so that his entire lawn was getting the same amount of water the whole way across it. Because he has irrigation. So my customer doesn't have irrigation. But even with my customer without the irrigation, we get 2 lots of rain, so 2 decent rainfalls. That lawn is instantly healthy again. Because we focus on the soil health first, and the plant health then comes as a secondary benefit of the soil being healthy. I will say we've got a top dresser property, and it's 100 square meters, right? Okay, so if it's 100 square meters, I will go and get 5 50-litre bags of compost and 3/4 of a cube of sand. And
how much compost?
250 litres, so like 5 50-litre bags.
Yeah, okay, yep.
And so I'm running around a 20 to 25% mix of compost, but a known quantity of compost instead of running just a pure sand mix because it adds more organics into the soil.
I'm going to say that you are a freaking legend. Like, so many people that I have talked to run your 80-20 mix.
Yeah, I try and
it's
run
like, I actually ordered what I would call 80-20 mix from a local landscape supplies company.
Yeah.
Right? 80-20, this is what I asked for.
Yeah.
And I actually just went and turned it over yesterday. There was a little bit left there. And I was like, I'm just going to turn it over and try and use it somewhere.
Yeah.
When it's been sitting, if it doesn't have fresh rainfall within the last week, it sets like concrete.
Correct. I've had that issue countless times.
So it's good for levelling, sure, but it is not good for nutrition and it is not good for soil health.
No, and
so that's straight sand is better.
Yeah, so I use sand, right, because sand will come out much more level. And I use compost because the compost is has much more nutrition than usually what they'll mix it with is like some type of soil blend.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting. And it makes it a bit difficult. And usually if you get, there's actually another mix I have too that if I really want to go to town on it, like I had a customer who had a putting green in their backyard that used to be on our Amazing program, and I used to make a mix out of what was in it? Manure, dolomite of lime.
Yeah. I like it.
Sulfate of potash, blood and bone. And I used to make that mix up with different ratios depending on what he needed. And I'll be honest, I learnt this off him. He taught me this. He was a retired greenskeeper who was like in his 80s and was absolutely fanatical about it. I used his mower. I didn't even use my mower. He bought me a pair of boots, so I only ever wore the pair of boots that he wanted me to wear at his property. Like, he was fanatical about this place.
Yep.
So I was very sad when he passed away, but still beautiful property. Learnt a lot from him.
So, a couple of things that you've mentioned here, but I'm going to say it because I think it needs to be said 5 times, 10 times before the listeners will start to hear this. Right? Soil health. You said 100%, that.
100%.
What you're doing,
I don't care. Like you'll never see us bomb a place with urea. Right? It's got its place, and it's got people who will do it, and that's fine. Go for your life. Don't call me and ask me to do it. We will never ever do it. We will. I'll turn around and go say to somebody, "We need to aerate your soil." We'll do that between August and September because it's usually the end of our quiet period, and as we're starting to get prepped for summer.
Have you seen a meth addict after they've deteriorated their health wise?
Yeah,
that's what urea's doing to your grass.
Yeah, people don't realise you're stripping out, and like I remember seeing when I did my horticulture course back in like 2005. I was still at high school, and I did my Cert 3. They showed us the effects of using different fertilizers and what it actually did to plants. And they use grass, they use plants, they use whatever they use. Urea shrinks your root base because it forces so much of the nutrients up and out of the roots. And most people don't realize roots are a living thing. They're a living part of the plant as far as they grow and they contract and they shed and then they grow again. You have 2 shedding seasons, which are usually summer and winter, and 2 growing seasons, which are usually spring and autumn.
Yep.
But if you don't have healthy soil, forget it. It's pointless. Like you might have the good looking lawn, but it's only going to look good for a narrow window of time. So
soil moves, and it'll get compacted. It will also self aerate to some degree too. So when you get rain, the soil will actually fluff back up a bit. And
it will.
It can get to the point where it's not absorbing the water, and that's a whole different issue. But typically, what you'll find is that soil will absorb sand. So if you put sand on the top of your soil, it will work its way into clay and other things, and it will actually start to break the soil up and make it a little bit more loose, and it'll move around a bit more. Right? You want your sand to work its way into the first 100 mils of your topsoil because that's where most of your root zone is for grass.
Yep.
And then when you add compost or the other proprietary mix that you mentioned as well, they're both adding a lot of nutrients to that soil, not just iron and NPKs, but they are adding. Yeah, they are adding, like in terms of human comparisons, urea being the meth where it actually kills your roots.
Yep.
Literally. It'll kill your roots. You won't get any more roots after you've had meth.
Correct.
But the same thing happens with your grass. It's like that. So when you, as a human, you go, all right, I want to eat a carnivore diet, you're not getting any fibre. Right? No. Sooner or later, you're going to get blocked up. You might look really fit and awesome, but you're going to get blocked up if you don't have some fibre. When you do the same thing to your soil, you're adding biomatter to the soil. That's the fibre. It helps to break the soil up, helps to make sure that the roots can find the food a lot easier. So that biomatter has the food in it, but it also gives that soil the ability to hold water and transfer water and nutrients into the roots.
Yeah, 100%. And the big thing that people don't realise is that soil's a living thing. You can, like, people go, oh, there's good soil and bad soil. Yeah, there is good soil and bad soil. Yeah. That's a really dumb way of breaking it down. Look at the bioactivity in healthy soil, because that's what's actually missing. You're missing the microbial life that you need in soil for it to be healthy. That's the principle that I've always worked from, is if you have a healthy soil, and I learned all this because I worked in a vineyard, right? Yep. Your grapes don't taste good, or you don't get a good yield based on how much urea you dump on a crop, right?
Yep.
You will get that 1, 2, 3, maximum 4 seasons, but after 4 seasons, you've depleted the soil completely. And like I went through it when I happened to work at one of the vineyards that I worked at. We were in the stage of switching from a completely synthetic-based business or vineyard to an organics-based business, and it was a long conversion. It takes about 7-8 years to convert a vineyard across to organics and to be able to be registered as organics, assuming you haven't torched the soil. Right? It's not like you can just be like, oh yeah, cool, I've done this for 6 months now, give me my certificate. No, they'll come out and test the soil. Yep. So I learnt a lot about soil health back then, and the same thing applies to lawns. If you don't have healthy microbial life and you have things like a high clay density, now in Melbourne we have a ton of clay in soil. It's everywhere I know in Melbourne it's got clay soil.
Same around here. It's pretty rare.
Yeah. So clay's a really big problem in Melbourne. And so, aerating and then top dressing with, compost or whatever, just putting the extra effort in and making sure you get it right makes a big difference.
Yep.
And you don't have to get it bang on perfect. Like if you say you're doing a 300 square meter lawn, right, and you're doing a heavy renovation. Now, heavy renovation, in my opinion, is 10 to 12 millimeters of top dressing, right?
Yeah.
Which works out to be 1 cube per 100 square meters, or 1.2 cubes, right?
Yep.
So, say we're doing it really heavy and we're going full, the highest rate I'm comfortable going, which is 12 mil. That is a very, very heavy top dress, by the way.
It is.
We will go and get 3 cubes of sand.
Yep.
And then I will go and get, if I can get it, I will get a cube of compost that's high quality, but more often than not, the compost that you get from your landscape suppliers is absolute garbage.
Yeah,
it's mostly chewed up yuccas and stuff like that that's been broken down from the tip, as I have learned.
Loads of fibre, but not a lot of nutrient.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just not necessarily what you want. So we'll usually get the bags of compost, because you tend to find you can get higher quality compost in a bag, because most landscape suppliers just don't keep high quality compost on hand. It takes a long time to make high quality compost. It takes 18 months to 3 years to make a decent quality compost. So anyway, and then we will add that into our top dressing, and that's how we do our lawn renovations. And so we'll have 25% organic matter in with sand, and we'll select our sand granules based on what we need as well for the soil. Sometimes we use a really coarse sand like river sand, and then we'll just go to a standard coarse, triple wash coarse sand. That was a bit of a lesson in soil health and like why our packages are what they are.
But we can say it again, that soil health is absolutely critical
100%.
in that sense. And we're coming up to 3 hours on interview here. We probably don't want to keep on going forever. But if the listeners made it to 3 hour mark, the one thing they should take home from this is that understanding soil health can make a massive difference to your ability to run a business in this industry.
Correct. The last thing I sort of really want to touch on is sortscape and systems that you use to run day to day. And what happens when things go bad. So since April, May and March, April and May were since I brought on my 2 full-timers, who are absolute guns, by the way. Both my guys are fantastic. They're go-getters, they really focus. And you need to have your business set up right to attract the right people. That means you got to pay them properly, you got to take care of them when you can, you got to set the expectation from the get-go of what you can provide too. Yeah. And I was probably a little bit overzealous with that. I thought we were going to grow a lot quicker than we did, or than we have, and it's really been a bit of a challenge. But basically, since February, we hit the skids. March was a down month just because of rain. We had a huge amount of rainfall and rain. I think we lost 4 or 5 days in that month of work, which is significant. Usually, I budget on losing about 12 to 13 days a year. So to rain. So to lose 5 in 1 month was pretty bad. But the other thing that started was I don't know, it's not really a war, but the whole Middle East thing blew up between Iran and Israel and the US. That all went to shit, and fuel prices went through the roof. And at first we weren't affected, and I wasn't worried at all. Yeah. And then we have only lost 3 or 4 in that period of our regular customers, and of that, 1 was due to price rise and them not being in a position to afford it, and the other 3 just weren't able to. They were hit really hard by the financial impact. Yeah. But all the one-off jobs have come to a complete stop. So we had a $10,000 turf install that fell on its rear end. We had all these garden tidy-ups that fell out, and it made me realise the importance of making sure you have reliable income when you have employees. Yep, for sure. Reliable, dependable. All my customers pay by the month, Yeah. That's just the way it is. Additional work, sure, that's an additional expense if they want additional work. But we don't do visits anymore where we just rock up to a customer's place and they're billed per visit. Everything is per month. Yeah. Or per fortnight, depending on what the customer wants. But
that is absolutely life-saving to operate your business that way when you've got employees.
Yeah, you have to. Even if I was to go back working by myself, I'd do the exact same thing. Because it means my income's stable year-round.
There's not a lot of people in Australia that are going to agree with you on this. And obviously right now they'll be sitting there going, I kind of wish I did. Or it'd be awesome if I could, but I can't do it because my customers won't sign up.
Yeah, there will be. I literally just send all my customers an email saying this is how we're doing things going forward. If you break down the amount of money you're paying per visit from now until what we're going to the fortnightly schedule, your price is going up by 5, 10, 15, 20, $30 per visit, whatever it might be per customer, right? Yep. But we're going to be there every fortnight now. And half these customers are like, oh, fantastic. Now I don't have to worry about my weeds in winter. I don't have to worry about pruning stuff. Oh, does that mean you can spend a bit more time in the garden in summer as well? Yeah, if it needs to. Yeah. Like if it hits February and we've got no growth and your lawn's not looking great because you didn't water it, then sure, we'll jump in the garden and do whatever needs doing,
So let's talk about a budget for a customer though, because I think this is really important. I'm sick of people saying this is an $80 job. I'm like, no, it's not an $80 job. It's a $1,800 job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you're doing a contract like this, you're going to be going, okay, this customer's worth $2,000, this customer's worth $5,000, whatever it is. How does that look for you?
Yeah, so there's a few things I suppose we can touch on in this. One is what you're willing to spend to acquire a customer.
Yeah.
Right? Two is how much the customer turnover will be, like as in how long you will keep the customer on average.
Yep. Yeah.
For argument's sake, basically, if a customer doesn't sell a house, if we remove customers who are selling a house and customers that pass away, our average customer turnover is about 3 years.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
we do lose a fair few to selling and passing away because a lot of customers are transitory or elderly.
Yeah, and the average person, I think, in Australia sells a house every 8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
9 years, something like that. But, houses sell, things turn over, but for the most part, we don't lose customers. I want to say over a 3-year basis, if we pick up, I can tell you what it is over a 12-month basis because I've actually got it measured. Over a 12-month basis, of the 20, if we pick up 20 customers, we will lose 3 of them over 12 months.
Right.
And we will lose 2 out of those 3 in the first 90 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll just decide that it's not for them, right? So, and that's okay. But if we go to our cost of what a customer costs to acquire, how much their turnover is, right? So how many customers we'll keep versus how many customers we will lose, and that can be for a variety of reasons. There is no single thing that causes it. That's how we then come up with our price. Now, my goal is to work out. I'll tell you what I focus on. I focus on when I do my numbers probably backwards the way a lot of people do them. When I look at a customer, I go, okay, this job will take roughly this much time to do per visit on average, right? Sometimes they'll be above it, sometimes they'll be below it, right?
Yeah.
I had a fantastic example of this in the group chat that we're both in as well, where I said my guys were there for 38 minutes and it was $140, right?
Yep.
On average, that property takes 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So total man time I'm talking about.
Yep.
So
Sortscape makes it easy for you to know this.
Sortscape makes this a piece of cake. I use all the reporting side out of Sortscape for all this, and I literally look at every job every day and look at how many minutes they spent at a job, and when we're busy, I tell them pick up the pace a bit. When we're quiet, spend the extra time, right?
Yep.
Keep customers happy, but sometimes you've got to push and sometimes you've got to pull back and work with it. But I'll go, okay, so based on this many man hours, my costs, I need to make this much profit. So say, for argument's sake, we're going to use round numbers. Okay, this is by no means what a customer is going to get charged unless they have a pretty serious property, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's say I go, okay, I need to make $4,200 of profit, right?
Yep.
Out of a customer. Out of that $4,200, I need to allow $700 for incidentary costs, which means when things go over budget or we have to do extra work that we don't charge a customer for, as well as that has to include the customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that customer has to be a $10,000 a year customer. Right? I will happily spend 10% of the profit to 20% of the profit. So if you make the profit the whole share, which I aim for 35% net profit.
Yep.
Right? So I will spend between 10 to 20% of that amount. So again, using that $10,000 as a round figure, I would spend between $350 and $700 to acquire that customer.
Okay.
That's going to make me $3,500 of net profit. Yep. So, because I know in 2 years' time, there's like an 85% chance they will still be with us.
Now, that is interesting because most people won't spend money on marketing, or if they do, they don't want to spend that much money on marketing, especially when you go, well, $20 lead from gyms.
I spent $17,000 in the last 6 months on marketing.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy, like as we were talking about it, I'm not happy with the results I got. So I expect results, but it's about 13% of our turnover for that period, for the last 6 months. So, I will pay money to acquire a good customer.
Yeah, but if you want to know that marketing's hitting the mark.
Correct, which at the moment, that is the one thing I'm really struggling with, and it's something I have to learn. And that's my current thing that I'm working on, to be honest, is marketing. I'm not a marketing guy. I can sell to a customer, and as far as, if we want to go back to the cost of our services type thing, what do you think my close rate would be on people that I quote? Given you now know roughly what we charge.
Your close rate. I'm going to struggle with this one because the average person in our industry is somewhere chasing around 80 to 100% close rate. The reality is when you're doing good marketing, you should be chasing somewhere around 0.5% to maybe 3 to 5% close rate.
Yeah, correct. So for me, our close rate on properties that I quote is about 1 in 3.
30.
So customers find value in the service that we provide at the rates that we charge.
Yeah.
The key is working out what the customer values.
Yeah.
Most people have a heart attack trying to work that out. If you are closing 100% of the properties you are quoting, you are way too cheap, and I just about guarantee if you look at your metrics, you'll actually be going broke. You won't be making money. I bet you don't have, at the end of each month, if you're landing 100% of quotes, except for some very, very out of the ordinary circumstances, if you're landing 100% of quotes, my guess is you'd be struggling month to month to make ends meet. Now, I'm currently in that position because we've lost a huge amount of sales that we were predicted to have coming in. Right?
Yeah.
It's a real battle, but it's just a hump. If we go back to February, our profit margin was 35% net.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's my sort of opinion on the whole quoting thing. I think some people focus too much on trying to close every deal when you should be focusing on how much money you're making out of each deal.
For sure. And there's a lot of things you can look at when it comes to going, am I spending money on marketing? Am I relying purely on word of mouth, which is where people are chasing that 80 to 100% close rate, because they're not actually marketing at all, and they're just going, well, if somebody heard about me, they want me. And like you say, they are often too cheap. Right? Yeah. And if you are marketing and getting 80 to 100% close rate, then you're definitely doing something wrong.
And that's the thing. Like, I haven't been happy with the marketing results that I've seen so far. I won't mention the company, but I personally they oversold and underdelivered. Whereas my business analogy is the exact opposite. We undersell and overdeliver. Yeah.
And I think this is where marketing is confusing for people, because you should be able to look at it and go, okay, if we look at marketing as a multi-stage thing, we're not just spattering and hoping for the best.
No.
So you can throw money at, like, the American version, Super Bowl, the Australian version, the NRL, State of Origin, right? Yep. The highest concentration of people that are watching that event, and it costs you a lot to be there, but you get a lot of people see it.
Yeah.
Right? What you do is you wind it back and you go, okay, let's start with the basics. Word of mouth is my first form of marketing. Second form of marketing is going to be things that people see around the community. So my trailer or vehicle signage, my uniform. Then you start going, okay, after that, do I put an advertisement on social media, or do I do a flyer, leaflet drop in a particular street or over a whole suburb where I want to increase that run? Once you've got multiple points of contact in an area that's targeting the type of customers that you want. You make sure the flyer or the social media post that they see is giving them a good indication of what you're offering and whether they are going to be a good customer for you and you're going to be a good fit for them. Then you go, okay, I still only want a really narrow percentage of people that see that ad to actually go, yeah, we're a good fit.
Yeah, correct. I mean, don't be wrong, mate. It'd be great if, my ads, for example, the last month have been viewed by 10,000 different people or 13,000 different people, something like that. I can't remember what the statistic was.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome if every single one of them was my customer, but they're not going to be.
No.
But out of that, 10,000, 13,000 people, this is just the social media marketing side of things I'm talking about. That's sort of in the last month. Yeah. Out of that, I would turn around and say my goal would be to get 10 to 15 genuine quotes out of it, and I would be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And then out of those 10 to 15 quotes, I would get 5 new customers out of it. We're talking about a single channel of marketing. Yep. I would be very satisfied with that. And that would probably cost me a month in social media, including management fees, is roughly $1,500 in marketing, including social media, including the management fees and the daily ad spend.
Yep.
But you've got to be comfortable to spend it. Like I said, we spent $17,000 in the last 6 months, and I wasn't happy with the results, and that's why I've just gotten rid of the company that I was most recently with.
Yeah, and so you should. Like, you want to make sure that they are delivering results that make sense.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, the way I view it is, I promise my customers something. I tell all my customers, give us 3 to 6 months before you start seeing your results, because depending on the time of year, depending how often you water, depending on how bad it is, a lot of our customers, when we first go to their property, they think they have a lawn, right?
Yeah.
By the time I've done 2 weed sprays, two lots of weed spray, which I'll do 6 weeks apart, right?
Yep.
Usually between 10 and 40% of their lawn is wiped out.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't lawn, it was weed,
weeds,
and they crack it,
So
it's
go to Bunnings,
crack it.
Go to Bunnings, buy weed and feed, do it half a dozen times, and you'll get a good result.
Yeah, and I say to them, I go, you don't understand, this is a process. Give us 3 to 6 months, and by the end of 3 months, the lawn started to actually recover. We started to get results. We've had the aeration done. We might have put out a few organics and got some fertilizer down, and depending on the time of year. By the time we hit the 12-month mark, the property looks like it's been bought by somebody else. That's literally the difference.
Yeah, and I was joking about buying weed and feed from Bunnings, but Bunnings weed and feed is better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
Marginally.
But
what you're talking about is... Yeah, what you're talking about is propelling that forward much quicker, much stronger, much longer lasting results.
Yeah.
Because you are doing the proper renovation on that lawn.
Correct. We're doing a renovation, then we're backing it up by doing proper maintenance. Not every customer wants to do a renovation. That's fine. We will. If that's the case, they just get the aeration that's included in their package, assuming they're on the package, one of the packages that includes aeration. We do the aeration. We put down the organics. You know what I'll probably do out of the goodness in my heart, middle of winter? I will probably go and get a couple of bags of, because a lot of these customers only got 300 square meters. I'll probably go and get 10 50-litre bags of compost at $9 a bag, or whatever the cost is from my wholesaler that I use.
Yeah.
And I'll just stomach the loss because it irritates me, and just make sure that we get the result instead. And then by putting down a few, a little bit of organics and whatever, we get the spread that we need.
It makes a big difference. Makes massive difference. Just getting that little bit of organic matter in there.
A little bit counts, and then doing stuff like we use treatments for keeping. One of the big things we do is we've just started doing it in the last 12-18 months. Is putting down zeolite. Do you know what zeolite is? Zeolite is a product. It's an organic product that holds, I think it's 3 times its weight in nutrients, and you can spread it across like a lawn or a garden bed or what have you. We used to use another version of this product when I was in the vineyard, and I didn't know the name of it back then, but it looks almost exactly the same as this stuff. So not quite the same, but fairly similar. And so what it does is essentially it creates a slow release of whatever you're putting down. So that can be rain, that could be kelp, that could be just a liquid organics mix. It will absorb that and retain it, and then help it release over a slower amount of time, so you don't get a massive impact, and then it's gone. So it's particularly helpful for, we usually put it down the start of August. We catch the August and spring rains, and that means, when you go into summer, your lawn might be a bit healthier and whatnot, a bit happier.
Yeah, okay.
So that's one of the things that we do, and most of our properties get that. There's a few that don't for particular reasons, but as a general, let's put down on most of our properties.
So there's a bunch of products like that you can buy nowadays that have come through decent scientific research. So when dolomite does magic to your soil quality, zeolite does magic. Having a good soil penetrant can make a massive difference in terms of helping the water to break the surface barrier and then stay in that soil around the roots.
So I want to tell the biggest thing I think most people don't realise is the way that these products work and what they actually do.
Yeah.
Most people think that a soil penetrant, we use ICL TriSmart. Yeah. Right, we used to use another brand, but they just become hard to get, so I've swapped. But it works on the same principle, right? So we use ICL TriSmart. It doesn't just allow water to penetrate; it allows nutrients to penetrate, and then it allows it to distribute itself evenly amongst the soil.
Yeah.
Now, all this stuff I've done A/B testing or ABC testing, right? Where I'll divide a lawn into two. Usually it's mine. My lawn absolutely cops a beating, and I do this for a reason, because I've torched my lawn like 6 times, I reckon, when I've tried products. Oh, this is really good, and this is fine with this, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you mix 2 products together, not realising you've created a bloody atom bomb, and you spray it across your lawn, and then the section that you sprayed with one or the other is fine, but then when you combine them, it nuked your lawn. I've literally had that happen twice, where I've done that. I've used one product and I've used another product, and then when I've combined them and then sprayed them, it's killed the lawn. But when I used them separately, they were fine. So, so I've done A/B testing where I'll put down TriSmart, for example.
Yep.
I will then treat for the next 2 to 3 months. I will then treat the whole lawn the same. I will put down the same fertilizers, the same liquid amendments, the same herbicides, the same grub treatments, the same everything. Nothing will change. Fungicides if we need it. Everything will be the same. The section that is treated with the penetrant, or in our case the ICL TriSmart, does far, far, far better in every aspect in comparison to the section that was not treated. And it's not just due to water, because I've even done A/B testing on reduced water on the section where I put down the TriSmart, because I thought maybe it's because the water's penetrated. I reduced the water by 70%, and it still outperformed the section of lawn that hadn't been treated with TriSmart. So that section of lawn, the section that was treated with ICL TriSmart, was getting 70% less water than the section of lawn that wasn't treated. They were both getting the same amendments. They were both getting the same fertilizer. Everything else was identical, right down to the point where I even used a drop spreader for this test, because I couldn't work out how this was happening until I actually looked into the biology of how, the science of how ICL TriSmart works. It's not just penetrant; it also helps retain moisture, and it also dissipates moisture evenly. And it doesn't just do it with moisture; it does it with all the nutrients that go in, all the fungicides that go in, the grub treatments, everything that goes in. It does the exact same thing. It even makes the zeolite work better. And A/B testing is just part of it. So it's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, it just helps retain water, because that's a very, very big misconception. And I actually think it's the biggest thing that most people stuff up, to be honest, is not realising how critical. Now, if you're in Brisbane, you get rain all the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah.
But in Melbourne, it's not uncommon for us not to get rain for 8 to 9 weeks of the year, like straight.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, I really want to wrap this interview up here. I think we've covered some really good stuff. But what I want to say there is simple things that we've been talking about in terms of treating the soil and the impact that has on the plant is massive.
Yep.
I bought my property years and years ago. It was after I started my business, but I went down to the local chook farm and I bought 2 trailer loads. So my trailer was like high sides, 5 foot high sides, right? Yep. 2 trailer loads of chook manure that had been well seasoned so it didn't burn the grass.
Yep, yeah, I was going to say, I hope you didn't dump this on it raw, but yeah.
Yeah, it dumped it on my backyard, spread it.
Yep.
And let the neighbours deal with the smell for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
And then my grass stayed green through drought, where everyone else's grass turned brown. Right?
Yep.
When you add things like manure that's aged and matured, not fresh and burning, full of acid, and they're horrible. When you add things like good quality compost, when you do what you're talking about with the zeolite, with the penetrants, these things change the soil for the better. Now, if you just go, all right, I've got whatever soil in my backyard, put some turf on top of it, make sure it's got enough water, the turf will grow, right?
Yeah,
it'll grow on a rock.
Yeah.
With the right amount of water. But what you're doing is you're making this turf hardy and resilient so that it lasts, endures, does a better job in difficult, trying circumstances.
Yep, correct. And if you want to go one step better, and one thing a lot of people don't realise is if you swap out chook manure, because a lot of people, especially like I'm Greek, right? So I'm going to say this openly, every wog is obsessed with chook manure, right? If you swap that out for a product like cow manure, right, you actually get a better result because it's slower releasing and it's not as high in nutrient in the way that a chicken has 1 stomach and a cow has 3. So the way they break down the food is different. And the way it processes and comes out means it actually has a much longer lasting and slower effect. It's a big basis I don't think about.
Same with horse manure is another great one for doing that.
It is. The only downside with horse manure is it does tend to be a bit more acidic, and you don't. My personal preference, and everyone's going to have their own, but my personal preference is always cow manure. It's more stable, and I tend to find better for long term improvement.
The downside I had with horse manure is that I had a very great yield of oats afterwards.
Yeah, not uncommon. Not uncommon. Just before we finish up, mate, I just want to give a shout out to my boys. I've got Tom, my 2IC, Brandon, my senior gardener, and Dimitri, my casual. Those 3 guys are legends. And honestly, finding good staff, if you can find good staff, it takes a while. Put the effort into it, treat them well, and that will save you 90% of the issues you think you may have. People will genuinely surprise me. All 3 of my staff members have come through with me with ideas, help, saving when we need to.
Nice.
Honestly, good staff members make or break you, and my guys are great. So,
yeah, well, that's awesome. Give them a shout out, and I'm going to say, boys, if you want to move to New South Wales and get away from that crappy Melbourne weather, just shout out and let me know. I'm kidding. Joking.
Nice, mate. All right, I'm going to let you go, and we'll keep going. But mate, we could do like a 5-part interview series, seriously.
Hey, Dan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.